Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is story about what if Naruto trained by Mito Ghost Part 1. Before I start, please do support for more amazing content and comments for Part 2. Do consider to subscribe my channel and share my video to your friends and check out the description as well. Let's start the video. The village hidden in leaves, Konoha no Sato, like the other great villages, had its own jinchuriki. But unlike the jinchurikis of other villages, Konoha's was not trained to be a weapon. He was allowed to live a normal life, normal as it can be. Villages have long used bijus as weapons to boost their military power. This was because of their great power. Tailed beasts had an almost infinite pool of chakra that no shinobi could rival. Ever since the times when Hashirama captured the bijus and handed them to other villages as means of balancing the power between the villages, tailed beasts have been nothing more than weapons for mass destruction. Balancing the power by ensuring that each village had its own biju was a wise decision to avoid other villages feeling weak and threatened by other villages. If other villages felt like this, there would be unrest and villages would start to fight. In the shinobi world, it did not take much for a war to break out. Trivial things that even kids would not fight over could result in Earth being fed human blood. Even when Hashirama handed out bijus to other villages, he maintained that Konoha would not have one. It was all in the name of fairness and the idea of looking good. But the village already had powerful shinobi, more powerful than anyone else. The Shodaime himself was only rivaled by his former best friend, Uchiha Madara. The first Hokage was hailed as the god of shinobi during his days due to his legendary power. If they were to add a biju on top of that, Konoha's power would surely be greater. When Hashirama decided to give bijus to other villages as means to balance power, his younger brother, Tobirama, had tried to have his brother sell the bijus. The man worked his mind in a different way than his brother. Surely something as powerful as bijus would be sold at a high price. This of course would strengthen Konoha's economic structure, knowing that other villages would pay a hefty fee for the bijus. Tobirama knew this. He knew that other villages needed the bijus and would pay any price to get their hands on them. The bijus held great power, and it was near impossible to defeat one. Instead, villages saw them as means to create powerful weapons that will boost the military power of the village. Many villages had tried to capture the bijus but failed miserably. Some did succeed. Hashirama, though, thought differently than his brother, and so he gave the bijus to other villages for free. He knew that the power of the bijus was great. But he could deal with the bijus if they were used to attack his village. His legendary Mokuton was able to restrain any biju without much trouble. Out of all the villages, there was also no one who could defeat him. Despite all his power, he was not too arrogant to hand out bijus because he could defeat them or had the belief that he could not be defeated by anyone. He disliked fighting and tried to avoid it all the times. That is why he gave away the bijus for free. Surely one would not think of attacking Konoha after all the village has done. He had used this as an opportunity to get the villages to cooperate with one another, but that failed. The kyubi had been the only biju that had been left untouched as it was too powerful than any other biju. When the other bijus were captured, the kyubi was not. Some villages tried to capture it, but failed. That was until Madara used his Sharingan to manipulate the great beast under his control. He then took the biju to battle Hashirama. It was during that battle that Hashirama took away Madara's control over the biju. And then it came to Konoha no Sato. The biju was sealed within Uzumaki Mito, the Shodai's wife. The Uzumaki woman became the first jinchuriki of the kyubi. But the fact that the kyubi was sealed within her had remained a secret that was only known to top village officials for security reasons. Mito carried the biju all her life. Even after Hashirama had died, she still lived on carrying the biju. She never used the kyubi's power, but merely contained it within her as Hashirama had deemed it too dangerous and powerful to be left alone to roam around the world freely. The belief only served to make the biju hate humans even further. When Mito was too old and her body becoming too weak to hold back the biju, someone else was brought into the village of Konoha. Uzumaki Kushina was brought from the land of whirlpools, the home of the Uzumaki clan. Kushina had special chakra that could hold back the kyubi. That was why she was selected to be the jinchuriki of the beast, the second jinchuriki of the kyubi. Before Mito died, she passed on the burden of carrying the kyubi to the young Uzumaki girl with the words that she could conquer the kyubi's hatred through love. Kushina held the biju from her young age into her adulthood, never knowing that her only son would one day carry the burden she carried. Kushina's status as a jinchuriki of the kyubi was also kept as secret from the villagers. Only the high-ranking officers within the village were told of this truth. For this reason, she was able to live within the village without suffering the fate other jinchurikis face. October 10th, the fateful day the kyubi was forced to run rampage in Konoha by a masked man. Before that, Kushina was giving birth to her first child, who was already named Naruto. During the time of childbirth, the seal containing the kyubi weakened greatly, and with enough force, the biju could break free. To avoid something like that happening, Hiruzen Sarutobi had Kushina transported in the outskirts of the village while being protected by his most trusted ANBU. While Kushina gave birth, Minato helped strengthen the seal. But the masked man appeared and killed all Anbu before forcing Minato, the Yondaime Hokage, to leave Kushina behind so to save his son. He really had no choice though. The masked man took advantage of this and extracted the Kyuubi from Kushina before subjugating it with his Sharingan. Kushina was able to survive due to her tremendous life force. The masked man then summoned the beast into Konoha. The Kyuubi did much damage to the village and killed many. No one could stop it. No form of ninjutsu could harm it. The situation seemed hopeless without the great Senju Hashirama to subdue the beast with his Mokutan ninjutsu. But during that state, the famed Yondaime Hokage stepped up. But not before fighting the masked man. Minato appeared and teleported the bijou outside the village before sealing it inside his son, Naruto, who became the third jinchuriki of the Kyuubi. Minato and his wife, Kushina, died during that night without being able to raise their son. But even so, they died smiling, having protected their village. And Minato held great belief that Konoha would treat his son well. Unfortunately, that was just wishful thinking. Naruto's status was made public, and this is how this life turned out. Chapter 1. Should have stayed home. Typical, they all stared at him like they had seen some monster. They looked at him with hatred that burned deep within their hearts. What sort of a monster was he then? When he was younger, he had questioned himself so many times what sort of a monster was he. They always referred to him as that thing, so he was curious. Some things were better left unsaid, they said. He could see the logic in that. However, people tend to hide things that ought not to be hidden. He was a curious person by nature. Probing into the mystery behind the hateful stares and the silent treatment had gotten him far. Curiosity was not a bad thing, it never killed anyone. How could it be bad if he was merely investigating a mystery that affected his mental state? He could not possibly remain ignorant, and so he observed to satisfy his curiosity. The result had been a disappointment. But that did not matter, as he ended up knowing why. It was funny how the world was and how things played out. Konoha looked at him with burning hatred, great loathing. The villagers, young and old, disliked his very presence. Even his shadow was dangerous to touch. He walked about the streets oblivious to the truth, while everyone else knew. They played him for a fool. For what reason? Simple, he carried the great nine-tailed demon fox, the destroyer of villages and a force of nature. He carried a beast that could level mountains under its paws. The Kyuubi was rumored to be a beast of infinite chakra, immortal, and its very being was hatred. The beast was said to have hatred that defiled anything it touched. Yet he had been tainted with such demonic presence, and the hatred had yet to defile him. Konoha feared the Kyuubi like a little child fears darkness. When a baby is crying because of the fear for what might be in the darkness, Konoha wets her pants, hiding inside the tunnels that lie deep under the Hokage monument. She cries for someone to help her, but her parents are both dead. Perhaps her caretakers may one day wipe all her fears away. Perhaps the villagers saw the nine tails in him. They saw the very thing that killed their loved ones, the very thing that nearly destroyed their village. The very thing that took away their beloved Yondaime Hokage. They loathed the bijou more than anything, yet at the same time feared the bijou more than anything. It was laughable that even the thought of the bijou gave them unspeakable nightmares. They say that he was a disease, and his presence in the village did not do them any good. Yes, he was no longer a child, he was not Uzumaki Naruto, he was not just a 13-year-old boy with no parents, he was just a thing they wanted nothing more than to get rid of. They spoke about the Sandaime not caring about their well-being for keeping him in the village. Yes, they wanted him gone. If he suddenly disappeared, they would probably throw a heap of celebrations. Despite the fact that they hated Uzumaki Naruto more than anything, they could not do anything to him, they could not touch. It was not the Sandaime's law that forbade them from speaking about the Kyuubi. It was not that they feared what the Sandaime would do if they rebelled. The Sandaime would be forced to side with them if they rebelled against his law. They knew it, and the leaders knew it too, that the villagers made Konoha. Without them, there was no Konoha. Even with all that, they could not touch the parasite in their midst, they could not touch him. Why? It was simple, they feared him. No, rather, they feared the Kyuubi. They feared what he would do if they pushed him too far. Even in their blatant ignorance, they could still see danger when they see it. Not even shinobi dared to hit him, or lay a hand on him. He was the jinchuriki of the Nine Tails after all. The reality must truly make them feel hopeless. It was laughable to him. They hated him and would love nothing more than to see him gone, but at the same time, they could not touch him. Could may be not the correct term to use. The truth was that they feared the power of the Kyuubi, and would not do anything that may awaken its power. Ignorance. It worked well for him. They did not know that the power of the Kyuubi was safely sealed inside of him. Unless he felt some extreme emotions or forced it out of the seal, it could not come out. Yes, the seal of the Uzumaki worked wonders. Minato might have been the one to place the seal on him, but it was the Uzumaki clan to devise the seal. Yes, they were that good in Fuinjutsu. If they knew this reality, he would be dead by now, or perhaps living somewhere. The Kyuubi would surely not endanger itself by allowing him to be killed. If he died, it meant a temporary death to the bijou. He doubted a prideful beast such as the Kyuubi would like it being dead. It was already an insult to its power and pride that it had been sealed within an infant. The other Bijus would surely have a feast about it if the great nine-tailed demon fox died. As it was now, he would not worry about such things. Perhaps when he was ignorant and oblivious to the cold hard truth that was right in front of his eyes, he would be worried about his safety. He stopped getting worried and afraid when he was 5 years old. He could walk within the streets of Konoha, carelessly, without being worried about anything or anyone. He could protect himself after all, and he carried the strongest Biju. Naruto sighed as he walked through the streets of Konoha towards the ninja academy. His footsteps were slow and were put down the ground like any lazy person would. Perhaps today was not a good day to go to the academy, Naruto thought mildly. He should have just stayed inside his apartment and spent the day reading something useful. He really did not enjoy most of the time he spent at the academy. It was still early in the morning, he always woke up early. 5 or 6 hours of sleep were enough for him. But sometimes he did sleep more than that. As long as he knew that his body rested and was afresh, he did not much more sleep. He could spend his time doing something productive. But lately he has been lazy to do most of his activities. He would have to remedy that before it became a serious problem. Naruto looked at the heavens. There is still about 30 minutes before class. I could get some ramen before class. But it did not matter if he was late or not. Iruka would probably just give him his lectures before allowing him to take a seat. He never really did listen to each lecture the man gave, and that always worked wonders in magically giving the teacher a vein on the forehead. He shook his head, slightly. It was barely notable. I will get some ramen later, he thought, proceeding towards the academy. But his movements became even slower. He had to kill these 30 minutes so that he does not bore himself when he gets to class and finds the seats empty. Finally, Naruto thought as he finally reached the entrance of the Shinobi Academy. He looked around the place, and saw that it seemed to be nearly empty of his peers. But his senses told him otherwise. He knew they were in class. Perhaps they had changed the time for when the academy starts. He put his hands inside his pockets and increased his pace, albeit slightly. The hall was just empty. He really did like it when it was empty like this. He could sense everything happening around him and could also think without having to fend off a glare coming his way. While he could ignore the glares, they did not make things easy for him because he could feel them trying to make holes on his back. It was not a matter of the glares being too much for him. He had gotten used to them that they no longer bothered him at all. Seeing a villager glare at him changed nothing of his mood. It was the usual business, and nothing too surprising. He would probably freak out if they started smiling at him. Surely, that would make him uncomfortable. The matter was that he could feel the glares because his senses were honed expertly like those of a top shinobi. While he spent much time in the streets and Forest of Death, he needed to have such skills. The Forest of Death was a dangerous place if you were not a shinobi. One had to be always on alert for the forest that was alive could eat one alive. He used the place for surviving dangerous encounters. Perhaps he just liked the thrill of being in a place where he knew he could die. Having the Kyuubi inside of him did not mean that he could not die. No, it only meant that he could not die because of things that would kill normal people. He was not a normal person, thus he could not be killed easily. The Kyuubi could apply those high regeneration healing abilities to heal deep wounds that could kill him in seconds. He had always liked to see the expression on the beast's face when it healed him of those wounds. But the fact remained, he could die like everyone. The Kyuubi could only postpone his death, and when time came, he would disappear like everyone. Nonetheless, he was not worried about death. He did not even fear dying. He knew that death was part of life, and as anyone can be born into this world, anyone could disappear. A minute or two passed and he finally reached his class. He did not bother to knock on the door. He merely lazily opened the door with his right hand before placing it back to its rightful place. The class was packed always, and the others looked somewhat serious. Iruka was holding a stack of papers. A test? He really should give this thing some much more time. But he was going to graduate soon. How he did during the year did not matter. What mattered the most was passing the graduation exam. He had no doubt that he could pass something that silly. He had seen the exam before, and knew that it was not even a test for him. Morning, Naruto. Despite the happy tone in the instructor's tone, his narrowed look spoke other volumes. How nice of you to finally come to school. I hope it is not much of a bore to you, but we are having a test today. So, if you could so kindly take a seat, others would like to start with the test. Naruto ignored the rest of the words. Morning to you too, Iruka-sensei, the blonde-haired boy said, smiling at the Chunin. This did nothing but to make Iruka glare at him even more. Naruto's smile became nervous. I will take my seat then. The rest of the class was oddly quiet. Perhaps they did not want to forget what they had read. Taking part of this little occurrence would not have been much of a new thing for them. They usually did so when he came late or slept in class. It would be until Iruka quieted everyone down so that he could do the job he so loved without much noise to disturb him. As Naruto walked up towards his seat at the corner of the class, he felt a familiar stare coming towards. He looked at the culprit with a smile, and the girl looked away, red-faced like she had been caught stealing. It was the normal occurrence. She would stare at him while he was not looking, and when he stared back at her, she would quickly look away, looking flustered. Perhaps he enjoyed seeing the look on her face. "Nice of you to finally show up, Naruto," Kiba said, in a low tone so that Iruka would not hear him. It would not be pretty if Iruka caught him talking while they were preparing for a test. He envied the fact that Naruto could come to school when he wished, but he would never admit it to anyone. His mother or sister would drag his ass if he decided to slack off. "If I did not come, I would miss Kiba-chan ace this test," a bit sarcastic as he responded. He too, in a low tone that only the Inuzuka heir could hear. His remark only earned him a heated glare from the boy. "At least I am going to pass the test." "I doubt you even know that there was a test today," the boy grinned madly. But the smile on Naruto's face did not go away. Kiba grinned because he knew the blonde was probably going to fail this one. "Good luck, you will need it." Naruto's smile widened slightly. "Thank you, Kiba-chan, for the wish of good luck. I can now write with confidence because the great heir of the Inuzuka clan has wished me luck." Obviously, the remark was purely sarcastic. To add to the insult, Naruto gave the boy a small bow of his head. Before Kiba could come up with a retort, Iruka spoke, in a slightly tired tone yet firm. "Naruto, I am waiting for you to take a seat so we can begin," the instructor said, looking straight at the blonde. "Let us just start without him. It is not like it will make much of a difference, we all know he is going to fail anyway," a boy said, deciding to break the peace within the room. This of course earned some laughters and snickers headed towards Naruto, as the comment was being referred to his record. Iruka glared at the boy. "Shinji, you should not be the one talking," the Chunin stated in a stern tone. "You also failed your last 2 tests." Another round of cheers. Naruto ignored it all as he went towards his corner. He took his seat and looked at the peaceful sky through the window. Iruka started talking, giving the instructions for the test. Naruto was not listening. He looked at Shikamaru, who always sat in front of him. "Why did you not warn me? I wanted to tell you yesterday, but you did not come to the academy. I could have looked for you at the usual place, but when I got home after the academy, I fell asleep and woke up today," that came the reasonable response from the Nara heir. Naruto nodded. "This is going to be troublesome," the blonde said, releasing a sigh. He placed his hands on the desk before resting his head on them. "I hear you," Shikamaru agreed with the blonde. Naruto released a yawn. "I really should have stayed at my apartment," he thought as he looked at Iruka, who had started handing out the question papers, as well as the answer sheets. The blonde took the question paper and looked at it with a bored look. He sighed. "Wake me up when there is 10 minutes left," he said to Shikamaru. The Nara heir merely grunted in response. Naruto closed his eyes. "I am seriously becoming a lot lazy these days. I sleep during the day more than I should be," he thought as he drifted to sleep. Hokage's office. The Sandaime frowned as he watched Naruto drift to sleep. This was becoming a problem. He had noticed lately that nothing seems to interest the blonde that much. Lately, he wore his bored expression mask more often than he wore a smile. What kind of a 13-year-old did not become interested in passing academy tests? Other kids studied hard because they wanted to become shinobi. But Naruto has not been showing interest in passing the tests, or even performing well. The boy's attitude towards academy work was dismissal. Who the hell takes a nap during a test? Those things stayed on your record. To a kid, good grades meant a lot. It made him happy when he was just a brat to do well in the academy. But Naruto was showing no interest in doing well. But then again, he had his parents to make proud. Naruto had no parents. Even if he did well, there would be no one to congratulate him. The thought made his frown deepen. If only Jiraiya was here, the boy would have someone to look up to, Sarutobi thought mildly as he put his crystal ball away. He would have to do something to get the boy motivated. He recalled that the boy did not even want to enter the academy. He had even started late than his age group. He had just pushed things through so that Naruto could graduate with those in his age group. There were some young fellas. The villagers had not been pleased with his choice, but he did not budge. He was the professor after all. "Is there any other way I can become a ninja without having to attend the academy?" Naruto had asked the Sandaime after a week of attending the Ninja Academy classes. He had been curious as to why the blonde would ask such a question. His curiosity got the best of him, and he asked why the blonde would ask such a question. The response he had been given by the boy had shocked him. Within a week, the happiness of the boy had been sucked out by the walls of the academy. He had told the blonde that he had to continue with the academy if he was going to become shinobi. But now things were not getting any better. He would have to do something quick, without drawing the villagers' attention. The council would surely give him a headache if they knew he was interfering or giving Naruto special treatment. Well, he was special, and he deserved it. But the damn fools did not have the same eyes as he did. And it was a damn shame that they did not see the potential he saw in Naruto. If Minato had not died, none of this would be happening. But it had happened, and there was no returning back. He just had to make the most of the situation and ensure that Naruto became a shinobi, a good one for that matter. He would ensure that he did not fail Minato and Kushina. But he was running out of options. Naruto's class would go through the graduation exam soon. He was sure that Naruto would pass the exam. He did not believe that the blonde was stupid despite his awful academy record. Most trouble was caused by the hatred people carry for the Kyuubi. He knew that even some academy teachers were willing to sabotage his education, although they seemed to fail. They settled abandoning his training. But he had done well in making Iruka Naruto's teacher. He knew the Chunin was a good person. He thought Iruka would be a good influence on Naruto. But that was not bearing much fruit as Naruto did not appear to take interest in anything from the academy. What made him smile was that Iruka did not treat the boy like other teachers he had assigned to Naruto before. The Chunin taught Naruto the entire things he taught the other students. The rest was really up to the boy. An Umbu made his appearance known to the Hokage. Sandaime-sama, I have brought the surveillance report you have requested, the Umbu said in the same monotone voice that all Umbu were famous for. Hiruzen held out his hand as the Umbu handed him the report. Once that was out of the way, he waved his hand, dismissing the Umbu. The masked man did not say anything as he disappeared into thin air. The Sandaime Hokage wasted no time in opening the file. He flipped through the first page. It just held the name, rank and status of the subject. He already knew all that information. What he was interested in was the report itself. He looked through each page with a critical eye. After all the reading, he closed the file and put it on his drawer. The Hokage then leaned back on his chair. As expected, there is nothing out of the ordinary, he muttered to himself, before sighing. This is all going to kill me one day, he thought, releasing a bitter chuckle. Shaking his head, Hiruzen looked at his paperwork. He frowned. The paperwork can wait, but Tuka-chan cannot, the thought, digging his right hand into his robes. Back at the academy, Naruto! Iruka yelled straight at Naruto's ear. He was glaring down daggers at the blonde. How dare he sleep during a test? This was not playing, for God's sakes. This was serious life, and he was just sleeping. Not even Shikamaru could do that well. He would after he finished writing. But that was not the case. Naruto had yet to even start answering his questions. What? Naruto woke up abruptly as he suppressed a wince from the tone of Iruka's voice. It was really loud and not healthy for his ears. He settled for smiling when the Chunin hardened his glare. Sometimes Iruka could be scary when he wanted to be. Seriously, Naruto, you have to start taking your studies seriously. Iruka spoke in a soft tone, never losing his death glare. The Chunin then shook his head. Start writing and I won't give you extra time. If don't finish, you will fail again. With that said, the Chunin went down so he could observe each student. After Iruka had made some distance, Naruto looked at Shikamaru's back. He must be sleeping with his eyes open, the blonde thought. I should have done that from the start, and I was having a nice dream, he mumbled quietly before taking a look at the questions. History? Who are the founders of Konoha no Sado? Which two clans first settled in Konoha? Naruto groaned as he read the questions. This was stupid. If you got the first question right, you could not fail the second. Anyone who got the first question and failed the second as an idiot. Well, he could understand why the question only carried few marks. I should have stayed at my apartment. This is boring, Naruto thought as he browsed through the questions to look for questions that would be worth his efforts to answer. It was plain stupid to ask him who founded Konoha, to make it worse, in a test of all things. Everyone ought to have this kind of knowledge, it was common. Anyone who did not know it was just plain ignorance. I better start answering the questions before Iruka says time is over, Naruto said to himself as he looked at the clock. There was only 2 minutes left before the time set could be over. He had 2 minutes to write something. Well, it was more challenging this way. He then started writing. 2 minutes later, okay, students. Your time is up, Iruka said, smiling at his students. He was sure that he had set more than enough time for them to finish writing, especially when the answers were easy. He could admit it to himself that he had set an easy test for his students. He just wanted some who have been failing to get a morale booster by passing this one. He just hoped that Naruto had written something. None of the students complained about anything. They brought their papers to his desk before taking their seats again. Ah, crap, Naruto muttered. I forgot to write my name on my answer sheet, the blonde said, looking through the window. He knew Shikamaru was listening. Normally, he wrote his name before answering anything. But this time had done things differently. Shikamaru sighed. I did not hear you, the Nara said, burying his face on the desk. Getting into this kind of conversation would only be troublesome, and he would rather avoid anything troublesome. Naruto was just a troublesome person. The blonde raised up his hand. Iruka was quick to notice it. No, Naruto, you can't go home now, the Chunin said with a bit of impatience. Where did that come from? Naruto asked himself, hearing Iruka's response. Was the man thinking that he had raised his hand to ask if they could leave? Sighing, Naruto spoke. That is not what I want, Iruka-sensei. What is it then? His impatience had now become visible to everyone in the class. Naruto could be so much annoying and troubling sometimes. He had many students to deal with, but he had never met anyone who could be as frustrating as the blonde. I forgot to write my name on my answer sheet, Naruto said, scratching the back of his head while he gave Iruka's nervous smile. There were a couple of snickers and some mutters of idiot or something along the lines. But the blonde ignored it all. He did not care much for what the kids thought. They understood nothing, and only played the ignorant children. Fine. I will write it for you when I mark the papers, Iruka responded quietly. He knew Naruto's handwriting and would never mistake it. He also knew that he would be able to find Naruto's paper easily given that there was bound to be gaps of unanswered questions. Iruka sighed as he looked at Naruto. The blonde was already looking through the window. You can take an hour break. You will return to class after that, and don't take much time. Everyone can go now, except for you, Naruto. You have already taken your break. Naruto sighed as he watched his classmates leave class through the reflection on the window. It was still morning, there was no need to go outside. He would leave if he had to take some time to eat, but he knew the mates who went outside were just going to be babbling about this and that. Sometimes he thought he was stuck in a 13-year-old body. He could not find himself enjoying the usual conversations his age group had. They bored him more than anything. Well, given this time, he may as well read something. You are not going out, Naruto said to Shikamaru, who was still sitting behind his desk. He looked like he wanted to get back to sleep more than anything. He noticed that Chuji had also not left the class. Then again, Chuji was wherever Shikamaru was. No, the Nara genius responded lazily. If I go out, I won't return. And my mom is going to be troublesome if I end up ditching class because it was too troublesome, Shikamaru said quietly. Even the thought of his troublesome mother gave him a headache. You will never stop fearing your mother, will you? Naruto questioned, smiling at his classmate. It was amusing that out of everything in this world, Shikamaru feared his mother more than anything. It was also apparent that even his father was afraid of his mother. The Nara heir had no shame in making mention of that. He would probably never know since there was no mother in his life. His mother was already dead. So there was no experiencing any of that. Shikamaru was not the only one who was afraid of his mother, even Kiba was afraid of his mother. Well, he could understand why the Inuzuka would fear his mother. The woman was crazy. He had seen her couple of times. And she had no problems embarrassing Kiba in front of everyone. Sometimes he felt pity for the Inuzuka. No, scratch that, he did not. It was downright amusing to watch. Overall, the kids say that mothers were scary. He did not know any other, and would never see any of that. His own mother was resting in the afterlife. He could only hope that she was at peace. Maybe you should see her one day, and you will know what I am talking about, Shikamaru said in a low tone. He was careful not to say anything that would remind the blonde that he had no parents. It would not be a good thing to sadden his classmate. But then again, he had never seen the blonde sad before, never. There was always a smile. Sometimes it was neither happy nor sad. His eyes only reflected boredom, sometimes curiosity. I will pass on that, Naruto said as he took out a small black book and started reading it. Shikamaru narrowed his eyes at the book. Its cover was just pure black, and had nothing written on it. He had never gotten a glimpse of what was inside it. One thing was obvious though, Naruto always carried the book wherever he went. I thought you would be out eating, Chuji, the blonde said, his eyes firmly on his book rather than on Chuji. If I went out to eat now, I won't have anything to eat in the normal break, Chuji responded calmly. But you are eating right now, Shikamaru pointed out looking at his friend. Chuji shrugged. These chips are just the extras I came to school with just in case Iruka-sensei gave us a break after the test. And it turned out I was right to bring this bag along. My stomach would have been throwing a fit of groaning if I did not have this bag. Nothing further was added to that. Shikamaru merely closed his eyes as he prepared for napping, again. He had nothing to do. A nap was the best he could do. Chuji continued eating his chips calmly, and in silence. As for Naruto, he continued reading his book silently. He read it until the others finally came back and took their seats. Iruka then came back to class, wearing his usual smile. Okay class, we are going to return to the usual schedule, Iruka stated looking at his classroom. I am waiting for Mizuki to get here so we can begin. He paused for a moment. He was supposed to be here by now, the man said to himself then to anyone. That did it for the class. They started making noise as they waited for the assistant to arrive. Mizuki was usually the one to assist during tests and practical exercises, in the training ground. Naruto held no love for the Chunin. The man hated him. He could see through that fake smile he always plastered when he looked at him. There were times when he hated smiling at the man. His hatred was blatant, and he could not hide a damn thing. Some people did better in hiding their hatred. But the man was a failure in that regard. Mizuki will teach you for the next hour, Iruka said. The man then started talking. He was teaching more history. Sometimes he thought that Iruka only gave the man an opportunity to teach history just to mess up with the man. History was damn boring. He hated learning it, especially since he learned all of Konoha's history when he was just 7, and that was 6 years ago. Spending his time listening would only bore him. The worst part was that the man taught history wrong. He did not even bother to make it worthwhile. And so, Naruto drifted off to sleep. Later, he looked at around the streets with a bored look on his face. They looked as lively as always. Deep inside in that liveliness was deep hatred that disgusted him. Of course, the hypocrites of this village did not please him at all. He felt disgusted just by looking at them, and if it was not for the fact that he embraced the hatred, he would have very well spat on their good-for-nothing hypocritical faces. Someone hit him. He had sensed a person coming towards him, but he had not thought the man would actually bump into him. The hit was enough to send him tumbling backwards. But of course, he could have maneuvered that. However, people were not expecting a 13-year-old to actually do something like that. And so he hit the ground on his back before looking at the man. "Watch where you're going, scum," the man ground out with as much as venom as he could muster. Naruto raised a ghost brow. The man had been the one to hit, and then actually moved towards him, hitting him on purpose. For a second he was tempted to curse the man, and give him a chilling glare. But he settled for scratching the back of his head, while smiling nervously. "Sorry, mister," he said apologetically. "You better be," the man said, walking away. Naruto almost looked amused when the man said that. He knew that behind the growl was barely hidden fear. He could swear that the man might have breathed a sigh of relief when he walked away from him. They seemed to like seeing him crawling beneath them. They were a bit sadistic sometimes. But it was okay, he did not care. He looked around to see that almost everyone was ignoring him. But he did notice that someone gave a discreet apologetic smile. He nodded at the man and dusted himself as he stood. It was nothing new. He knew that not everyone in the village loathed him. He may be a social outcast, but there were some people who were at least kind. But they showed their kindness discreetly. Sighing, Naruto made his way towards Ikaraku. He went around this time because he knew he would have the place to himself. By this time people did not usually come to the ramen stand. He liked it because he could eat peacefully without driving away some of Tuchi's customers. He knew that some people would not stomach eating next to him. Yes, he was that disgusting thing that made their stomachs reject their meals. "Naruto, my boy," Tuchi said as he watched the blonde take a seat. "How are you?" "Good," Naruto replied smiling, "and you?" "I am good," Tuchi responded. "How was the academy today?" "Same old boring," Naruto said with a nonchalant shrug. It was boring for him. But in order to become a shinobi he had to attend. Well, at least it was going to end soon. He just had to endure for a week and would finally leave the academy and become a genin. Tuchi sighed. "You should at least be enthusiastic about it like other kids, Naruto," the old man said, knowing Naruto's dismissive attitude towards the academy. He had tried to get the blonde a bit more excited about the academy, but nothing had worked so far. Again Naruto shrugged. "Well, the graduation is coming soon. I will get through and become a genin." He held a large smile as he said those words. "Do you think you will pass the graduation exam?" Aya asked as she came from the kitchen. Naruto nodded. "It is easy. Only an idiot and one without acceptable chakra control for an academy can fail," the blonde responded calmly. "I will get the usual order while you kids talk," Tuchi said, walking away towards the kitchen to get Naruto his food. He already knew what the blonde would eat, so there was no need to ask him what he wanted to eat. The atmosphere changed completely. "I am going to see if father needs help," Ayam said, before she hastily left the blonde alone. Nagato sighed as he cancelled his rain jutsu. The jutsu was perfect in detecting spies within the village. It was compensation to the fact that his senses could not stretch out to the entire village. But he was a very good sensor nonetheless. Even when one could stretch his or her senses over the entire village, it would take complete focus and some serious meditation. As far as his intel told him, there were only 2 people who were better sensors than him. Well, he also had some ridiculous chakra control. For someone who had so much chakra as him, it was hard to believe that he could manipulate chakra like he does. There were no spies within the village or some unwanted guests. He made sure to deal with any intruder in his village. He did not like it when someone infiltrated his home to gather some intel. The village's security was of high level, it was nigh impossible to sneak inside. And even if someone did sneak inside, he would not take much time to realize that someone was inside this village. Even top spies knew that Amigekyo was not a playing field. He doubted that even the infamous snake Sannin, Orochimaru, could tempt his ire by trying to enter the village. He would slit the snake's throat and burn it down. This village was heavily protected. It was the ideal place to keep secrets. When you entered using the back door, you could never go out. It was the den of a lion. Once you entered through the back door, you forfeited your life. He looked at the streets of the village with an expressionless face, Ever since he took over the village, it has been raining peace. He had ensured that everyone in the village was safe and eliminated everyone he considered an enemy. Yes, there was no one who he even suspected to be any enemy. Even a suspect was not allowed to live. That is how he had managed to lead this village and hold on firmly as its leader. From the Third Shinobi World War, he had been the leader of the Amigekure. He had eliminated Hanzo and everyone who was associated with him. He did not want anyone to start a rebellion on his village. His organized assault on Hanzo had led to the freedom of Amigekure. Of course, he had not eliminated Danzo's army alone. He had his own army to command. It had been a civil war that stained this rainy village again. But at the end of the war, he had destroyed Hanzo. And that left aim in his grasp. Since he single-handedly destroyed Hanzo, and his remaining henchmen, and the fact that he had never been defeated in battle, the villagers of Amigekure had started calling the god of Amigekure. Well, he had started calling himself the god of peace. Still, the villagers never referred to him by his name. He had abandoned the name long ago. Only those close to him were the ones who called him by his real name. To anyone else, he was known as Pain, and to the villagers of Amigekure, Pain-sama. He was proud of the fact that many have not seen his face. People have seen Conan's face, but he never exposed himself. His paths were the ones who always got to see the world. Even the Akatsuki members have not seen his real body. He only interacted with them using tendu. He was not the only one who had a name from the villagers. Conan was also given a name. She was the angel of Pain-sama. She had fought alongside him during the civil war, which was now but a history. But word had not gotten out that their civil war had ended, and in his favor. He had ensured that the word never got out of the village because he knew if it got out, he would have to deal with annoyances. Nagato turned around from the view and walked towards his office. He found Conan sitting down with her usually blank look. "Have you gotten a word from him?" the woman asked, looking straight at him. Nagato did not respond immediately. He first went to take a seat before responding. "No, last time he was here, he said he would keep his distance from us. He said that someone was watching him, and it would be troublesome if he had to watch his back every time he decided to come here." "It has been 3 years, Nagato," Conan reminded her partner. Really, judging by his posture and expression, he did not seem to mind about it. He was not as concerned as she was. It was not that she was impatient, she was just worried. "I know," Nagato responded blankly. "It has been 3 quiet, long years. Ever since we dealt with the Obito issue, we have had little to do since the village was already stabilized. And the Akatsuki has been quiet. I have yet to speak to any member in 4 years." Conan nodded. "Well, that is not anything unusual," she said, referring to the fact that Nagato has not been in contact with any Akatsuki member. Sometimes they could go for about 5 years without contact. But when he called, it was back to business. "How are we going to deal with the Obito issue? The time for moving again is coming soon. Itachi and Kisame are the only ones who know about him, since both were recruited by him. But Kisame is the one who has seen his face. Itachi did not, he only suspects something. Those two are the only ones who need to be spoken with, since both will be curious as to why he has not made any contact," Nagato said, before pausing for a moment. "They will be told of what happened, and if they have a problem with it, they will be eliminated." Conan nodded, not feeling anything to the fact that Nagato was speaking about killing both Itachi and Kisame should they rebel because the one who recruited them is no longer in this world. Akatsuki did not accept anyone who betrayed them. "I doubt Itachi will have a problem with it. The one who might have some reactions would be Kisame. I doubt he too will do anything rash, but of all the members of Akatsuki, Kisame was the only one who knew the goal Obito had for the organization. Nevertheless, he was not worried about it. It would be a pity if we lost them, though. They are both useful to the Akatsuki. No one could probably replace them should we lose them." "Have you already drawn plans for when we start moving again?" "We will not be moving in the same direction as we were before he came," Conan said. She was not the one with the dream. She was merely a pillar that supported the dream of Nagato and Yahiko. The latter had once said that Nagato was the one who would take Akatsuki to new heights, but it appears that Nagato always wanted to follow someone. Well, at least now he was not exactly following someone. "I have. We have already discussed the important details with him." He watched Conan carefully to see how she would react to this revelation, since she was not there when plans were made. She was busy cleaning up a mess they had created while dealing with Obito. He got a raised brow from the woman in response to the revelation. "When did that happen?" "It happened after we removed Obito. That was when he said he would not be coming here," Nagato responded carefully, so that he would not have Conan think that he was keeping secrets from her. He did not like doing something like that to her, especially given their history together. Conan nodded. "I am expecting a delivery." With that, she stood up and left the office without more words. Nagato did not say anything either. He did not even watch her leave. He just drifted off to his thoughts. Konoha, the Sanname sighed as he leaned back to his chair. The graduation was coming soon, and he wanted to pick the best sensei for Naruto should the boy pass his graduation exam. He wanted someone he could trust explicitly. Someone he knew would not drive the blonde into the forest to get him killed. If he got a jonin that held hatred for Naruto, he would have made a grave mistake. That person would surely leave the blonde to die if the opportunity presented itself. There were a few jonins he knew would not bring harm on Naruto, purposely. But he needed one that would be suitable for the kind of training the blonde would need. He also needed someone who could handle the blonde and subdue him if it came to that. He had no doubt that Naruto may one day be able to access the chakra of the Kyuubi, so he wanted someone who would be strong enough to deal with it. He just hoped that something like that would happen before he had told the blonde about his status as a jinchuriki. As far as he was concerned, the blonde was oblivious to the cold hard truth. He had never told him and forbade anyone in the village from even saying the Kyuubi. If one broke such law, death awaited. With the surveillance he has kept on Naruto and his very actions, he was positive that no one had told him about. Even though the blonde was not stupid, he doubted that he would have discovered the truth on his own. It would be something to dread if Naruto found out on his own and kept that fact from him. It was at times like this that he was thankful that the blonde did not come from the Nara clan. It certainly would be a disaster if the blonde suddenly says, "I know." He would probably have a heart attack if that happened. But just in case, he has put plans for damage control should something like that come to happen. The chances were low, but it never hurt to be on the safe side. Especially since he got the feeling the things may not be as they appear. Shaking his head, Sarutobi motioned for an umbu to appear before him. "Get me Kakashi with force." "Hi," the umbu saluted before disappearing into thin air. Sarutobi knew that it would not be an easy thing to find the retired umbu. The man could hide his presence very well, especially since he once was one of Konoha's top umbu. The man was somewhat of a legend within the umbu division. Added to that, the man would take his sweet time to get here. Sometimes he had to use force or remind the jonin who he was. He may be old, but he was no weakling. 30 minutes later a disgruntled Kakashi appeared in the office. The sandame almost chuckled seeing the look on the man's face. Almost being the key word. "You called, Hokage-sama?" As always, the man looked like he would rather be somewhere. But the sandame did not read much into that. "Yes," the Hokage said, taking out his pipe. If he was going to have this kind of conversation with the jonin, it was best settle himself with it. He lit it, and puffed out some smoke before fixing Kakashi a look. "Has something happened?" Kakashi questioned, seeing the look on the sandame. The look only meant serious business. So, he was curious. He would be ready for action if his services were required. "No," the sandame responded, shaking his head slightly. "It is about Naruto." Silence greeted the office. "Has something happened with him, Hokage-sama? Or do you wish for me to keep an eye on him?" Kakashi asked a few questions. Normally that was what the sandame would request of him when it came to Naruto. He knew that the sandame trusted him with Naruto's safety more than anyone in this village. "No, nothing has happened with him," the sandame brushed away Kakashi's concerns for the blonde. "What have you heard about him aside from anything that relates to it?" Kakashi looked thoughtful for a few moments before he finally responded. "I often hear other academy students calling him a weirdo and a failure. I also heard that he has never passed a test since the year began." "Why do you ask, Hokage-sama?" The sandame nodded to himself before responding. "I will skip the weirdo part and get to the failing part. Have you really observed him while he is at the academy?" Kakashi shook his head. "No, not really. Do it until the graduation. It is coming soon. Naruto's class will graduate this June since they were supposed to graduate last year December. Until then the graduation exam you will tell me what you have discovered." "Hi. Is there anything else?" The sandame shook his head. "You are dismissed. You will talk much with me after you give me your report." Kakashi nodded before disappearing. Danzo chose that moment to appear in the office. Hiruzen narrowed his eyes. He had stopped talking because he had sensed the men appear. "What do you want, Danzo?" "If you had given me the boy I would have trained him well." "But it is not too late," Danzo stated, looking straight at his childhood rival. Not this again, the sandame thought, feeling all his energy leaving him. He really was becoming tired and too old for having this kind of conversation with Danzo. The man was relentless, and it was starting to get on his nerves that the man kept coming. No matter how many times he said no, the man would always come back, looking for a yes. "Academy, as you all know, your graduation is coming in a short period of time. But that does not mean that you will have to stop attending your classes. You will be attending until the day you graduate," Irika announced, looking a bit happy that his students were finally going to graduate. "Aha!" The class groaned at the thought of coming back to the academy tomorrow. While they enjoyed their time in the academy, they also liked spending time away from Irika's lectures. The lectures could be boring sometimes. "Alright, before we take a break, we are going to the training ground to review what you have learned so far in practical skills," Irika said, clasping his hands. He was obviously ignoring their groans. "Yay, we can see Sasuke-kun fight." At least some people were a bit enthusiastic about getting to the training ground. The said Uchiha merely stayed quiet, ignoring everyone else. "Come, kids, let's go," Iruka said, smiling, as he began to walk away. He had again ignored something. He was tired of fangirls. No matter how hard he tried to get the girls to behave, he always failed miserably. When it came to their affections for Uchiha Sasuke, the girls were a bit crazy and would not hear a thing. Naruto groaned. He disliked doing something like this, especially when it was all just academy staff. He had watched real battles could shake the very ground he stood in. Watching academy students make a mess of academy taijutsu was nothing but a bore. How could he downgrade like that? Perhaps he had been quick to watch everything and learn all that he has learned. If he had not, perhaps he may have been interested in this thing. He doubted it though. "Are you coming?" Shikamaru asked, looking straight at Naruto with a bored look on his face. The blonde was sitting as though he was not go to the training ground with the others. He knew that the blonde had to be forced to participate in the training exercises, or else he would just look elsewhere. "Do I have to?" Naruto almost but whined like a child he was. "I don't really want to watch Sasuke beat the crap out of our classmates. I have seen the scene many times that it is not even worth it anymore." Shikamaru mumbled something, before shaking his head. "I am just gonna leave you. Trying to convince you to do something is troublesome," the Nara heir said as he began walking down the stairs. "You know, Naruto, if you don't go now, Iruka-sensei is just going to come back here and drag you like last time," Chuji said, following his friend from behind. Sometimes, Naruto did it worse than Shikamaru. Perhaps the difference was that Shikamaru was just lazy, while with Naruto, nothing just seemed to interest him. Naruto groaned again, before looking through the window, for a few moments. "Well, it can't be helped. If I don't go, Iruka will probably drag me by my feet towards the training. And I don't want to mess my pants, I just bought them recently," the blonde mumbled to himself as he followed his classmates. He finally reached the training ground and found the others standing, prepared for anything. Naruto looked up at the trees not far away from the training ground. "Oh god, not another one," he thought irately. "Well, at least this one is a little interesting than rest. But by the end of the day, he will have bored me already." He got a bit sad at the last thought. While all the thoughts played inside his head, his expression remained indifferent. He was just staring far behind the trees, like he was not interested in anything. The person at the tree had thought he had been seen, but when he saw that the blonde's eyes were not directed straight at him, he sighed in relief. It seemed that the boy was just diverting his attention elsewhere so that he did not have to be tormented by Iruka's lecture. Now that everyone is here, it seemed that he was just looking straight at Naruto. The blonde had been the last one to appear in the ground behind Chuji and Shikamaru. "We can begin with this session and take a break. Are you going to participate?" Naruto asked, looking elsewhere, but he was talking to Shikamaru. The Nara heir never took part in any of these activities unless he was forced to demonstrate something by Iruka. "No, it will be a drag. I would rather watch," Shikamaru responded. He did not like making demonstrations or being forced to spar with someone. It was too much of a drag to do that when there was nothing serious about it. Perhaps if it was a requirement of graduating, he would certainly do that. "Well, it would not matter if Iruka forced you anyway," Naruto responded, never taking his eyes off the greenly trees. They were quite lively. Perhaps they manifested the mood Hashirama always had. It is said that he was always a lively person, and sometimes carefree. "If he does force you, I have no doubt that you are just going to get yourself knocked out just to get over with it." "Whatever works to get Iruka-sensei off my back," Shikamaru said in a nonchalant tone, before looking back at Iruka. "Now I will need volunteers. And the faster we finish this, I will free you for your lunch." Iruka put on a good offer that he knew his class would love it. Unfortunately, no one wanted to take part. But the girls were not all that. "Iruka, pick Sasuke-kun." It was not a surprise to Iruka that the traditional sensei was dropped as the girls addressed him. When it came to their Sasuke, those girls cared for nothing. They would probably threaten to kill him if he refused their demand. They had nearly mutilated poor Kiba when he had cursed their precious Uchiha, and Mizuki had also been nearly beat down. But the Chunin was a lot faster and quicker than them. Mizuki had made the mistake of sparring with Sasuke. He was trying to demonstrate the standard taijutsu stance to the class. Since the Uchiha was already good with taijutsu, the boy had been trained well before his family was massacred by his older brother. He also trained at home alone, unlike other kids. So Mizuki went on to spar with Sasuke. He made a mistake by misjudging the strength of his kick. The result was an unconscious Uchiha and angry fangirls thinking that Sasuke was dead. Iruka could remember the day very well. Naruto had been laughing at the expense of Mizuki. The Chunin had tried to calm down the fangirls, telling them that Sasuke was alright. But the girls did not want to hear any of it. What was important to them was that Mizuki had hurt their precious Sasuke-kun. Mizuki had run about the training ground as the furious mob chased him. He had avoided them by using Shunshin to escape the academy. Iruka was sure that they would have put his assistant to the hospital if they had gotten their hands on him. Mizuki could not have retaliated because they were just children. Well, angry children. But it would have been seen as a bad thing if Mizuki fought back. He was just glad that no one had gotten hurt. But Naruto was greatly amused by it. Pick Sasuke-kun, Iruka. Another demand came from the chairwoman of the Nation Executive Committee of the Sasuke fan club. Iruka was thoughtful for a few moments. He realized that it would not end well if he denied that request, given the looks the mob was giving him. If they ended up rioting, he would have to cancel school for the day. He certainly did not want to do any of that. Okay, he said smiling. Uchiha Sasuke it is then, he said, much to the cheers of the fangirls. The dark and gloomy Uchiha then stepped out of the group. He looked so calm and carried the atmosphere of almighty around him as he stepped forward. It was probably just another day where he had to show his superiority by beating another loser. It was often annoying, but he would never deny the chance if he was given. While he may not admit it to anyone, he actually felt good about himself when beat down his fellow classmates. At least give me someone who will be a bit of a challenge, the last loyal Uchiha grounded, quietly. Yet everyone heard him. His words only served to delight the fangirls, much to his annoyance. Really, he wished they could just all die and leave him alone. Sasuke-kun is so cool, the stars, hearts and everything went into display. Naruto merely sighed and looked away. He had looked back at the scene in front of him when the fangirls started placing their demands. This was something he did not want to see. Well, it was amusing back then, but now it was just annoying. He did not understand what the fuss was all about when it came to the Uchiha. The boy was cold, maybe he should not be the one to say that. But that was beside the point, the boy was an emo more than anything. But he was not much interested in the boy anymore. Any interest he had was lost already. Isn't someone going to go on and take on the emo? Maybe when someone finally beats his ass, he will stop being so damn almighty, Kiba said, looking around at his fellow males. There was also the fact that the Uchiha took all the attention of the females. If he got beat, it might make the girls lose all their obsession with him. Naruto, why don't you do it? Shikamaru asked, with slightly narrowed eyes that only the blonde could see. Naruto shrugged. Nay, I doubt that I can land a hit on the great Uchiha Sasuke. You are damn right about that. I have a better chance of beating that bastard than you, Kiba retorted. Akamaru barked, perhaps agreeing with him. Apparently the sarcasm was lost to him. How did he miss that one? Chuji asked, looking at his friend. He knew that Naruto could throw some sarcastic remarks every now and then. This one just a blatant remark, and yet Kiba failed to notice. I have no idea, Shikamaru responded with a shrug. Naruto poked his chin. Perhaps you are right, Kiba. I mean, you have a 0-5 record against Sasuke. You have had plenty of experience hitting the dirt. Maybe this time you will finally get it right. But if you do fail, you can always try again. I mean, you just have to be embarrassed by the guy you hate the most in front of the whole class. Your mom might even find the amusing part of it. Kiba glared. Are you mocking me? Naruto shook his head. I don't know, he truly looked he did not know. Ask Akamaru, perhaps he understood me. I am sure he can interpret it for you. He seems to be a lot smarter and can understand human language better than you. Why did you say? Kiba asked, taking a few steps towards Naruto. The blonde looked around, looking clueless. Are you talking to me? Shikamaru's sweat dropped. Kiba should have been used to this by now. Naruto did act like that when Kiba started to act otherwise. What is going on back there? Iruka asked, stopping Kiba in his tracks. Kiba, if you have so much energy to pick a fight with Naruto, why don't you come here and battle with Sasuke? Kiba turned around to face Sasuke. He looked at the emo Uchiha and then the fangirls. I think I will pass. Iruka sighed. Naruto, why don't you spar with Sasuke? Yeah, so that he can demonstrate the difference between number one and last, another girl spoke, much to the delight of the class. Naruto merely looked away, not because of embarrassment or anything. This was all just boring. It was nothing new. He had been in a scene like this before. And last time he had walked away citing that he was bored. Iruka had tried to stop him, but he had disappeared from the radar of the Chunin. At this moment, he would rather be in his apartment than here. He looked back at Iruka when he realized the Chunin was waiting for his response. No. Iruka sighed, but before he could speak, Sasuke spoke. What is the matter, weirdo? Afraid you are gone hit the ground like others? The Uchiha questioned, with a rare smirk. So cool. Naruto rolled his yes, before looking away again. Yes. You have proven yourself to be the top student. I am no match for you. The sarcasm all but lost. I mean, who can defeat Sasuke-chan and his death glare? Not lil ol' me. I swear just by looking at you gives me nightmares. And there is also the fact that you might be into boys. I have seen how you stare at Kiba's behind each time you give it a beating. Apparently not. Kiba looked horrified, while the expressions on other males appeared like they were ready to explode in laughter. The expression on Sasuke's face was simply priceless. Naruto almost laughed. Almost. The mob was on an entirely different stance. They were glaring down furiously at the blonde, looking as though they were ready to mutilate him. Naruto, though, was not the least concerned. But for the mob, how could he? How dare he say Sasuke is gay? That is blatant blasphemy. A sin that is punishable by death. How dare you? Naruto just fixed the mob a nonchalant look that did nothing but infuriate them. Well, it appears that you are gonna have to spar with Sasuke, Naruto, Iruka said, a bit worried about where things were going with the mood change. Naruto sighed. It appears so. Sasuke-kun, show the weirdo who is the boss. Make him pay for that blasphemy he has just uttered. Sakura yelled, earning nods of approval from her fellow fangirls. Naruto had to pay, he had to pay. It was unforgivable that he called Sasuke, their Sasuke-kun, gay. Sakura could not even dare repeat the words the blonde had said. This is just going to be troublesome, Shikamaru said, looking at the mob that had been ready to pummel Naruto. They must have stopped from doing anything once it became apparent that the blonde was going to face Sasuke. They would have surely chased the blonde around the training until they could no longer move if it had not come to this. As far as Shikamaru could remember, Naruto had always stayed away from Sasuke's path. Even when Iruka wanted the blonde spar with the last loyal Uchiha, Naruto had last walked away from the training ground. The blonde never showed any interest in the Uchiha. While Sasuke settled for the mask of cold impassiveness, Naruto settled for the mask of blatant boredom, but most of the time it was indifference. He also carried a nonchalant aura around him. But what had changed? It was the first time he had heard Naruto make fun of Sasuke so bluntly. He made fun of other people, but not Sasuke and the fangirls. If his memories served him correct, the blonde had yet to even talk to the fangirls. He always ignored them and looked the other way. But then again, Naruto ignored many things, as long as they were of no interest to him. He did not even know what interested the blonde. As far as he was concerned, the blonde showed little interest in anything or no interest at all. Sighing, Shikamaru shook his head. Thinking of an answer was just going to be troublesome. It was better to be at peace and allow things to unfold themselves. You think so? Naruto said, responding to Shikamaru. He then decided to get this over with so he can go away. He surely did not want to be here anymore. Perhaps he could see for himself what the so-called prodigy and genius could do. Well, at least, give them a show, Naruto. Today might be the last time we come here before graduation, Chuji said before Shikamaru could respond. Yeah, he is going to end getting beat like everyone else. If he even lands a hit on Sasuke, I will become his slave for a month, Kiba said, looking confident that Naruto could not even land a hit on the Uchiha. The blonde could not even defeat him, what more could he do? Naruto looked at Kiba, with a somewhat twisted grin that rang all sorts of alarms within the boy's head. Well, it only lasted for a second, only for Kiba to see it. Are you sure about that? Though Kiba felt confident, he surely did not feel comfortable with the grin Naruto had shown him. It was just wrong for someone to smile like that. He was sure even Sasuke would feel sick if he saw a smile like that. And no, Naruto sighed, how disappointing. And I was looking forward to having you as my humble slave, the blonde said, walking towards the waiting Uchiha. He certainly did look like he was disappointed. The look of indifference returned in full force as he went to face the number one in the academy. Remember that this is just a sparring session. Nothing too damaging. The message was clearly addressed to Sasuke since he was the one who has showed more skill than any of the students. The Uchiha was also quite brutal. He did not want anything hurting being done to Naruto. Sasuke nodded, quietly, and settled to giving Naruto his famous cold mask of indifference. What infuriated Sasuke was the fact that Naruto did not even flinch. He just continued to have that look of blatant boredom. He did not seem to be interested in anything. If Sasuke was not mistaken, the blonde was not even looking at him. That look of nonchalance may seem like it was looking at him, but it was not the case. He was not looking at him. It felt like the blonde was looking down on him. How dare he? The thought infuriated him. Who does the weirdo think he is looking down on him? No one did that to him. Naruto could see Sasuke's jaws clenching in anger. He silently shook his head. He had yet to say anything and the Uchiha was already grinding his teeth. What more would he do if he does open his mouth? Okay, you can start now, Iruka said, giving the boys the green light to start the session. Naruto did not move. He merely folded his hands across his chest, before looking elsewhere. Gah! One of the fangirls growled, pulling her hair. The audacity of that weirdo. He is trying to look cooler than Sasuke-kun. Sasuke-kun, you cannot allow something like that to happen. It is unforgivable. For once Sasuke agreed with the fangirls. He smirked as he got into a stance. Yet Naruto still looked away from him. He even let loose a yawn. Sasuke glared before calming himself down. He rushed towards the blonde, but grew even frustrated when the blonde did not even turn his head to face him. He stopped in his tracks with his fist close to Naruto's face. The blonde did not even twitch. Naruto raised a brow as he turned to face Sasuke's fist. Aren't you going to hit me and get this over with? Sasuke glared. You are not doing anything to defend yourself. You just want me to knock you down so you can get this over. The Uchiha spoke in a cold tone, clear that he was not the least amused. I see. I shall end this then. In an instant, Sasuke was down on the ground, hitting dirt, while Naruto was walking away. No one actually saw what happened. Perhaps it was because no one was expecting Naruto to attack. Even Kakashi, who was watching from afar, blinked in surprise. He did not see that happening. This second, Sasuke was standing still ready to attack, and then the next, the Uchiha was eating dirt with Naruto walking away from him. What the hell? Sasuke yelled uncharacteristically, getting up from the ground. What the hell just happened? The fangirls yelled, echoing everyone's thoughts. The Sandaime was asking himself the same question. If he had been expecting that, he would have seen that. Can we get a replay for this? Kiba yelled. That weirdo could not have put the Uchiha on the ground. I must be dreaming here. Iruka-sensei, tell me that this is all just a prank. I am afraid that is not the case, Kiba. Iruka responded quietly. He was not expecting that to happen. He too was a bit shocked by the turn of events. Sasuke charged at Naruto while the blonde had his back turned against him. He delivered a hard kick on the blonde's back, before moving down swiftly to a leg sweep. The attack got the blonde and forced to hit the ground on his face. The Uchiha stood proudly, after exacting his revenge. This was much to the delight of the fangirls. Naruto sighed as he turned around to face the sky. I should have expected that, the blonde muttered to himself, looking all but bored. He was not hurt or anything. He was just finding it to be a task to get up after the Uchiha's dirty trick. Well, he had also played dirty when he tripped the dark-haired boy. Sasuke-kun is so cool. The weirdo had cheated to trip Sasuke-kun. Naruto rolled his eyes, while still lying down. Foolish girls, they did not understand the shinobi world. The world was not fair, nothing was fair. Well, he could not expect children, fangirls, especially to understand the real world. These girls wanted nothing more than fun with their Sasuke-kun. It would be a drag if he ended up getting stuck with one of them in his genin team. Okay, class, you can take your break, Iruka said, particularly to one, since no one was listening to him. The Chunin sighed and went to Naruto, who was still on the ground. He held out his hand to the blonde. Come on, let me help you out. Naruto took Iruka's hand and got up. Thanks, he just found the words coming out of his mouth. Iruka smiled at him, warmly. Are you hurt? The Chunin asked with some concern in his tone. What Sasuke had done was not allowed. He had been slow to act because of his shock. Regardless, he should have expected it from the Uchiha. Sasuke was like that. He had noticed that the Uchiha did not accept it when someone seemed to be better than him. No, I am fine, Naruto said, dusting himself up. Well, at least his pants were not damaged. He ran his right hand along his hair, getting a feeling from it. He sighed, his hair was not messed up. The Uchiha hits like a girl. He had experienced worse, but Iruka did not have to know all that. Iruka nodded. I'm glad you are not hurt. I will have to speak to Sasuke though. The man looked thoughtful for a few moments. If you had paid attention to class, you would have known that you should never turn your back on your opponent. Naruto shrugged. I am just a 13-year-old kid, and this was just a little demonstration. I also assumed that once the Uchiha was making out with the ground, I was the winner. I did not expect that he would attack me like that. Iruka nodded. You are right about that. He almost chuckled though, at Naruto's choice of words. How did you manage that anyway? Naruto merely smiled at the Chunin. A little trick I learned. When you can't beat your opponent with skills, you have to use your wits. So you have learned some things. I was afraid that you may not have learned anything since you are always sleeping at class, Iruka said, smiling. So you knew that Sasuke would not attack if you pretended like you were not going to defend yourself. He was not exactly pretending. But Iruka did not need to know that. He did not want to be scolded for nothing. Pretty much. Iruka nodded. Join the others for lunch. He said, looking at the other students. The fangirls were already disappearing to follow the brooding Uchiha. Naruto said nothing. He merely turned around to leave. He placed both his hands inside his pockets and walked like he was being forced to do so. He was not feeling hungry, so he would just end up watching the others eat, or he could just throw himself to a nap. For a second I thought you were going to win against that brooding bastard. But I should have not expected from someone like you, Kiba said, making Naruto roll his eyes. What did you do to him anyway? Naruto shrugged. Go away, Kiba. Akamaru wants to feed you. That was all said in a nonchalant tone. He was really brushing off Kiba's question like that. Kiba glared, but before he could say anything, Chuji patted him on the back. Cool down, Kiba. You know saying anything further will only make him antagonize you further. Come on, Akamaru, let's go somewhere, Kiba said to his pet dog. He held no ill feelings towards the blonde. They just played like that. Sometimes he won some rounds, sometimes he lost badly. But he would get back at the blonde. Why do you enjoy picking on him anyway? Shikamaru questioned. It is easy and it amuses me when he becomes infuriated. His retorts are always amusing, Naruto responded with a nonchalant wave of his hand. Shikamaru could not deny that, and so he said nothing further on the matter. You really did pull a fast one on Sasuke, the Nara said calmly. He could guess what the blonde had done, but he had to have been fast to pull it off. Thinking much about it would be a bother. You know, I know for a certain that you could have dodged that attack by Sasuke. Naruto shrugged. It would have been a drag to do so. Not so surprisingly, Shikamaru seemed to nod in agreement with what Naruto had said. Where are you going? To my apartment. I need to change my shirt. This one has some dirt that is glaring at me, Naruto replied, walking away. What a lame excuse to ditch class, Chuji said, knowing that Naruto just wanted to go home. Even Shikamaru nodded at this. Naruto was not a neat freak. But he did like his things clean. If there was a way I could ditch class without my mom knowing, I would be leaving with you. This day has been rather dull and I don't see it improving, Shikamaru said, walking away with Chuji towards the usual spot. Naruto said nothing as he started walking away from the ground. He was just going to his apartment to do something useful, or sleep. He sighed when he sensed something. Naruto! Where do you think you are going? Iruka called out, staring at the blonde. He really did not want to have Iruka searching for him around the village. He just had to endure. Nowhere, he said, turning around. He better go around relaxing on his lonely tree. I thought so, Iruka said, smirking. You better not think of leaving while I am not looking. I will find you wherever you run off to. The academy teacher stated going back to his class to deal with some things. It would be a drag if I leave now, Naruto muttered to himself as he climbed the tree like any academy student. He sat on a branch. Reading my book seems like a good option. Well, at least he has a good hobby, Kakashi thought looking from afar. I do wonder what he is reading though. Still, it was hard to believe that the blonde wanted to be a shinobi when he showed absolutely no interest in academy work. Perhaps he just found it boring rather than anything. I am going to call it a day, the Jonin thought before he disappeared from his location. He did not think that there will be anything happening for the day. And he thought he had seen enough. He probably won't be watching the blonde tomorrow. Naruto closed his book when he felt Kakashi disappear. I wonder what the Sandaime is planning, he thought silently. He then shrugged. I doubt it is anything interesting. He opened his book again, and continued reading. The parents loved their children very much. It was a wonder to Naruto how they could show so much love to their children, and yet show hatred that was just pure unadulterated. They could smile to their children, and then they saw him, they would lose their smiles. Sometimes it was amusing when some parents would pull their children closer to themselves, as if it was for protection. Perhaps they feared the outcast would violate their children. They could not protect their children if he wanted to violate them, yet they made the effort. Laughable. It was also a bit sad though. He was not alone in his life. He had people he knew he could trust with his life. But at the moment, he could not see them. This meant that he was probably alone at the moment. But it did not matter. He may be still young, but he enjoyed the time he had to himself. Sitting within his apartment was not a bother. Especially when he knew that he was not alone. Well, technically, he has never been alone. From the day he was born, he had the QB sealed within. Everything that he knows, the QB knows. He even shared his mother's body with the QB while it was still sealed within her. From the day he started to form within his mother's womb, the QB had always been there. Even now, the bijou was somewhere inside his gut, probably taking a nap. Even when he knew that bijou was inside of him, he had never talked to it. It was not because he could not. He just did not bother. For now, he had nothing to say to the bijou. But he would soon have something to say to the bijou. It was living inside him, it had to pay rent. Still, demanding rent would not be fair. It was not the QB's choice to be sealed within him. The bijou had no choice in the matter. Both were just unfortunate to be caught in all this. But they just had to make the best of the situation. Possibly the only thing the QB cared about was getting out of its cell, hence he never visited. Why is that thing looking at me and my son? Naruto read those lines within the expression he got from a certain lady. It was a little insulting to be called a thing. Being a thing meant that his status as a human was removed. A thing was an animal, not human. It was right, before the eyes of these people, he was not a human, he was not a child. Naruto shook his slightly, and continued his way towards the academy. He could hear some sigh of relief as he walked past the parents. Sigh, I thought it was going to talk to me. I don't know how you can stand around it your whole day, son. I can't even picture standing beside it for a minute. Because of this, mommy, I'm proud of you. But all you have to do is pass, and you will no longer have to suffer this torment that the Sandaime is making you suffer. How amusing. It was ironic. He also could not stand such hypocrites and ungrateful fools. It was just that he contained himself in a well-mannered manner than any of them. The thought of spending his entire life protecting these people gave him horrible nightmares. Yes, in some sense, they shared the same feeling towards each other. Perhaps if they changed, he would not dislike them, but that was highly unlikely. The feeling of hatred was mutual. He was not living his life to suck up to them. Even if it meant going to hell, he would never live to gain their approval. The kind of living they had forced him to live was already hell. If he was going to hell, he would probably go with them. If there was such thing as justice, they would be with him. And he would like nothing more than to be their warden. Yes, that would possibly soothe his soul. Perhaps the fact that there did not seem to be a god, in this forsaken world, made him desire to become the god of justice. Perhaps that dream was a little far off his reach. He was just a brat after all. But through living in this hell of a village, he was forced to grow up at an alarming rate, forced to understand the difference between right and wrong at a young age. While his peers were running off with their parents, he was learning what was right and was wrong. He knew that what this village was doing to him was wrong. And one day, justice would be served. He was going to be the one to bring justice to the world after all. The criminals would be punished, betrayers dealt with, those who break the rules dealt with, and those who played with fire will be burned. No one will escape justice. They could all smile now and speak what they wished. But the day would come. Watch where you are going, weirdo, Sasuke growled at Naruto as the blonde hit him from behind while he was walking. Naruto had not realized that he had been lost in thought. Sometimes when he thought of justice, he sort of lost of his senses. But he should work on that. He could not have his senses switched off, even for a moment. A single second was more than enough time for someone to drive a kunai through your chest in the ninja world. Naruto regained his composure after Sasuke had pushed him away. He looked at the dark eyes of the Uchiha filled with nothing but coldness and hatred. His own eyes showed nothing but boredom. His expression mirrored his expression, complete nonchalance. Sasuke gritted his teeth seeing that look again. How dare the blonde look at him like that? Those eyes just made him feel like he was worthless, like he was not even worth the blonde's time. It made him feel like he was seeing the look Itachi gave him. The man had said he was not even worth it to kill. Naruto was looking at him like he was nothing. The look Naruto gave him was no different from the one he gave Academy work, useless, not interesting enough. It even wounded his pride further when the blonde simply looked away from him and walked past him like he was nothing. He felt anger burning through his body and was struggling hard to contain his anger. He could feel the anger coursing through his blood veins, setting his blood on fire. The boiling blood almost made him explode in fury. They had already reached their class, and when Naruto had opened the door to the class with his right hand, Sasuke grabbed the left, forcing Naruto to turn to him. He noticed the heated glare the Uchiha gave him. If looks could kill, he would have been lying on the floor dead by now. Sasuke clenched his jaws tightly at Naruto's nonchalant attitude. He was shaking in anger that he did not even that he was squeezing Naruto's hand, hard. But oddly, Naruto said nothing about it, even though he could feel that the Uchiha's grip was getting way too tight for his comfort. He did not even wince. The opening of the door brought the others who had already been in class to witness this little ordeal. The fangirls were much more excited than anyone, wishing for Sasuke to beat the crap out of the weirdo. Naruto ignored it all though. It would be a little troublesome if he paid much mind to them. It was also nothing interesting either, so it was not worth his attention. Are you just going to walk by after that? Sasuke questioned in a low growl. It was unforgivable for someone to do something like that to him. If it was he who had done it, that would not have been a problem. But this was not him, and it was the loser who had done it to him. He could not just leave like that. I was going to do just that, Naruto responded in the same nonchalant tone he always used. But it appears that you are not going to allow me to leave. Apologize. No, Naruto would have normally apologized, but he wanted to see where the Uchiha was going to take this. He was curious. He knew the Uchiha was bold, but he did not know if he was going to be brave enough to do something. This was interesting, a little. You are misunderstanding something. The Uchiha was right in front of the blonde. I am demanding that you apologize. There was the unspoken threat that the Uchiha laid. Well, he certainly had guts. No one could blame him for being confident though. He had proven to be the best in the academy. Other teachers have called him a genius. Naruto suppressed an urge to roll his eyes at the unspoken threat. He had a mountain-sized beast living inside of him. Did Sasuke actually think that he could scare him? If you had the Sharingan, that glare of yours would do wonders and I would have apologized. He then poked the Uchiha on his forehead using his right-hand finger. This action triggered certain memories in Sasuke. Naruto then whispered to the raven head's ear. But you are just a little boy genius. Your only proof of that you are Uchiha is your pride. I can't believe that you have yet to unlock the Sharingan. Itachi would be so disappointed. Sasuke was already seething in anger at the mention of his brother's name. Within the next second he kneed Naruto brutally on his gut. He followed this by gripping the blonde's face with his right hand before slamming him on the ground. With one last glare after the blonde had hit the ground, painfully, Sasuke walked away, much to the cheers of the fangirls. To add to the insult on Naruto, another fangirl came and crashed her foot on the blonde's gut, and stayed down. The whole class was laughing again at Naruto's expense. Perhaps I went a little too far, the blonde grumbled to himself. After a few moments, he got up and placed his hands within his pockets before walking up his seat. He ignored the mocking and other sorts of snickers coming his way as he walked up. What was much interesting was that he was still carrying the same look on nonchalance, despite what had just happened to him. It seemed that he was not embarrassed by it. Naruto sighed as he felt the eyes of Hyuga Hinata walking with him. He could perfectly see the look on her face despite not looking at her. Today, he did not feel like messing with her. He just walked towards his empty seat in a slow pace. Despite his lack of response, the Hyuga still stared at him with her concerned gaze lingering at his form. It was surprising that the Hyuga could stare at him with such concern. Most Hyugas were mostly indifferent towards him. But this one was different, and a little creepy. "You are an embarrassment to us men," Kiba said, looking straight at the blonde. "But I did not expect much from the loser. He did not even put up a fight. He just allowed the Uchiha to smack around like a doll. Even he would not allow something like that. This only allowed that bastard of a Uchiha to look even more good." You are a man?" He looked genuinely shocked that Kiba was a man. It seemed that he believed that the Inuzuka was a woman. But Kiba knew that Naruto was just acting. Though, with the look on his face, you could believe that he was being serious. "What is that supposed to mean?" Kiba glared, much to Chuji's amusement. "That was a good one, Naruto," Chuji said, looking at the blonde, drawing a chuckle. It was amusing to see the blonde make fun of Kiba. He did not recall a day where Kiba did not say something that would draw the blonde to mock him. It was no surprise to him that Naruto would allow Sasuke to push him around like that. "I mean, I thought you were something, or an animal. But I did not think that you were a man," Naruto said, in the same bored tone that he had using since speaking with Sasuke. The fact that he was so indifferent about the matter made Kiba a bit angry. "Bastard," Kiba said, landing a punch on Naruto's face. "That should keep you quiet. And now go away." The Inuzuka was aware that Naruto would not return the punch, that is why he hit the blonde. It would have been a bother the blonde returned the attack. Naruto placed his hand on his mouth, where Kiba had hit him. He wiped out bits of blood that was leaking. He suppressed the urge to smile wickedly at seeing his own blood. "You hit like a girl, the Uchiha does it better." Kiba scoffed. "Tell that to your bleeding mouth," the Inuzuka said, before looking away as if dismissing the blonde. It was over, he had nothing more to say. That was the punch line. "I will give this round to you. That should wipe off some dirt on your pride," the blonde said before continuing with his steps towards his seat. It did not take more than 10 steps to get to his seat. "You know, Naruto, you can't always be taking hits like that," Shikamaru said to the blonde. Seriously, the blonde had to fight sometimes. Not that he would do any better if put in the exact position as Naruto, he would have just laid down the ground. Naruto shrugged. "We are still in the academy. My life is not in danger, why bother making the effort to dodge?" "I would understand with Sasuke," Shikamaru said, followed by a yawn. "But Kiba? Seriously, with how the blonde teased and mocked the Inuzuka, he would have thought that the blonde would have not given him the chance to give his pride a boost. And he was surely going to brag about it." Naruto shrugged again. "It is better to have him think that he can beat you than think he can't. Prideful fellow don't like competition." "It sounds reasonable when you put it like that," Shikamaru said before going back to his nap. Naruto did not say anything further, he just took out his book and started reading. After a few moments, a happy Iruka walked into class with a large smile. The man seemed to be really happy. It was like he had just gotten laid for the first time in years. "Someone is in a good mood," Naruto muttered, looking at the Chunin. He had seen the man looking happy on a few occasions, but he had never seen him so happy like this. "It makes you wonder what got him excited," Shikamaru said, looking down at their teacher. Well, he was not too much interested in hearing what the man was excited about. He just wanted to go home. As he had foreseen, since tomorrow will be graduation, the man was surely going to leave early. If he had gotten things his way, he would not have even bothered to come here. "Well, you could not have everything going your way. Who knows?" Naruto said, and then looked through the window, suddenly, no longer interested in what was happening in the class. Nothing much was happening though. "Okay students, settle down," Iruka said, trying to get his class in order. Unfortunately, no one was listening to him. The students were busy chatting amongst themselves to even listen to what he was saying. The Chunin sighed. This was a daily occurrence. "Shut up." Complete silence. Iruka smiled. "Good," he said. It always worked when he raised his voice that high. Children tend not to listen when you speak to them warmly. Sometimes it appeared that they only listened when forced. As you all know, tomorrow will be your graduation. Your class was supposed to go through the graduation last year, but due to some circumstances, your graduation was pushed to this year. These children were supposed to have graduated last year, but there was some trouble within administration that forced the graduation to be pushed forward. There was also some parents who had complained, saying that their children were too young to graduate from the academy and should spend another year at the academy. It seemed that some parents did not want their children to become shinobi just yet. Of course, parents knew the horrors of being a shinobi, so it was obvious that they did not want to see their children experience such horrors at a young age. There were also some who complained that the education was not enough. But the Sandaime had rebutted all those protests. No one truly knows what happened, but the academy system crashed down, and the administration building was burned down along with many records. Only a few records were recovered. Students were forced to push into this year. The Sandaime had promised to make anyone who might have sabotaged graduation that she would pay. But there was no one who was found to be the culprit. From June last year, until this June, they did that other year the parents pushed for. This worked well for Naruto though. The blonde had started late than his age group. He really should not have been at this class. He should be a year back. But the Sandaime had worked to ensure that Naruto moved with his age group. With the graduation cancelled last year, the blonde was able to join his group age. Tell me it is not going to be pushed forward again, Irika-sensei. As much as I like you, I don't want to spend another year in this place, a student said clearly. The boy did not want to be an academy student anymore. He wanted to become a shinobi and learn all cool stuff. Apparently, even though the parents complained about the education, nothing changed. Me neither. Naruto could also agree. He certainly did not wish for this torture to continue. If he was to be forced to continue with the academy for another year, he would certainly strike. But that would be too troublesome. Perhaps he may just quit becoming a shinobi and run away to some other country in faraway lands. He could just relax, enjoying the peace. No, certainly not. He would never quit the road to becoming a shinobi. Be silent, Irika yelled, as more murmurs broke out. And then there was silence. Your graduation will proceed as planned. Even if another occurrence happens like last year, you will still graduate. Unfortunately, you have become too old to remain in the academy. Your class has to graduate to make room for new students. Phew, well that is a relief. I thought I was going to have to spend another year looking at that bastard, Kiba mumbled to himself. The bastard was obviously Sasuke. But he dare not say it aloud. It was best for his health that he did not. The fangirls would kill him if he did that. While everyone was not looking, Sasuke smiled ghostly. This was the best news he has heard since the year began. He could finally leave this useless place and become a shinobi. He did not care if he was going to become just a mere genin. Anything but here was welcome, as long as it was taking a step towards his goal of becoming powerful to kill that man. Yes, staying in this place was not doing him any good. This was a good thing. Leaving this place would ensure that he would get a jonin for a sensei. Jonins were strong shinobi. They were the elite aside from Umbu. If he got a really good sensei, he would surely get the power he wanted. He would get the training he wanted. He would finally grow his power. Perhaps he may even awaken his Sharingan. It did not dwell with him knowing that he was an Uchiha without the Sharingan. The thought of it made him bitter. But things were playing well now. Just watch the space, Itachi, the raven-haired thought, a bit darkly as he indulged in thoughts of becoming all too powerful and finally getting his revenge. Yes, he will avenge the Uchiha. And nothing would stop him. You just watch, Nisan. Irika sighed. He had expected them to behave like this knowing that they were going to graduate. Don't worry. You will graduate. In light of this, there will be no classes today. You are given the time to prepare for the exam tomorrow. And the round and another of cheers erupted. Shut up, and then there was silence. If you continue to make such noise, I will change my mind and have Mizuki take you out of the village for survival training. That got them mute. As I was saying, after Irika had finished his little speech, Naruto sighed. He could not believe that he had come here for this. If he had known, he would not have bothered to show his face in this place. I can't believe this, the blonde muttered. Believe it, Shikamaru said. I would have told you before Irika came, but I thought, why not sit this through with you? Naruto ignored those words. I would have been having a nice dream now, the blonde said. He would have been sleeping somewhere in the forest of death. To think that he had wasted time coming here, Irika would not have searched for him knowing that there would not be any classes. But then again, the man would have searched for him and forced him here as punishment for ditching class. Me too, Shikamaru said. That is if his mother did not wake him up. She never did like him oversleeping. But he had worked around that problem. Come on, guys, it is not that bad, Chuji said, with a bit of a smile. He sighed, knowing he would not convince them otherwise. Are you going to be training Shikamaru? I will if I go home. His mother would force him to train in preparation for the exam. He did not want to do any training. He was confident what he could produce at least a minimum of what he had learned in the academy so far. I am going to train with my dad. He said he would teach me a few things, Chuji said, standing up. But before he could say anything further, Kiba showed up. How are we going to kill some time? He asked, thinking that his fellow classmates would be thinking of doing something else other than training. I see you are thinking of leaving me behind, again, Shino said, butting in. It would not be the first time they do something without him. They had left before in this little group, and he was not going to be left behind again. No one is planning anything, Chuji said. Come on, Shikamaru. Let us go. Perhaps we will stop at my family's restaurant to get something to eat. But I am not going with you at your home, Shikamaru said, standing up. He did not want to end up training with Chuji. He would rather go somewhere safe and watch the clouds. You are not going to be doing anything? Kiba questioned. Come on guys, we have to take this opportunity and use it well. Sorry, but I already have plans with my dad, Chuji said, walking away with Shikamaru. The latter did not even bother to think for an excuse. He just followed his friend silently. Kiba was now left with two weirdos. Before he could say anything, Naruto spoke. You should go home, Kiba. I think Akamaru wants to teach you something. The blonde was already walking away as he spoke. Kiba wanted to retort so badly, but he could not think for anything. So, he settled for this. Looks like it is just me and you, Shino. Naruto saw that Irika had yet to leave. Most of his classmates had already left the class. The man seemed to be busy with his paperwork, so Naruto did not bother to say something. However, Irika had something to say. Naruto, the Chunin called. Yes, Irika-sensei. Naruto stopped his movements, but did not face the Chunin. Do you need help with anything? I mean preparing for tomorrow's exam, Irika clarified. Naruto then turned to face the Chunin. The man seemed to genuinely want to help, he knew that already. He smiled, no, but thank you, Irika-sensei. With that being said, the blonde walked away. That was the most beautiful and honest smile the blonde had given him. It made him happy. Naruto had never even said thank you to him before. But it was not like he had done anything special for the blonde. Each time he tried to help, the blonde always turned him down. Perhaps he was thanking him for the thought. Perhaps the blonde knew that he really wanted to help. Naruto closed the door as he made his way out of the classroom. He needed to kill some time. I wonder what I will do to kill some time, the blonde mumbled as he made his way towards the exit of the academy. He had the whole day to himself. He needed to do something that would keep him captivated for a little while longer. Perhaps that man will finally show himself before me. It is his presence I felt, the blonde finished in thought. Hokage's office. The Sandaime smiled, seeing the smile Naruto gave Irika. It was a rare smile that the blonde gave every now and then. It was not that the blonde could not smile, he could, but that was just a smile that one did not get to see often. It was a smile that made him think that everything would be alright. There was no devil who could smile like that, right? I have not seen you smile like that in a while, Jiraiya said as he appeared out of nowhere. His appearance nearly gave the Sandaime a heart attack. But then again, I have not seen you in a while. Damn it, Jiraiya. Don't just appear like that, the Sandaime said after his recovery. Seriously, he was not as young as he had been back then. This old body was fragile and could do without some shocks. You are getting old, sensei, Jiraiya said. Certainly, the man would have sensed him before he even appeared in the office. He was called the god of shinobi after all. But he had become old now. He was no longer the same. That, however, did not make him a weak shinobi. It is not a secret, the Sandaime responded mildly. How have you been, my boy? Good, Jiraiya answered. I was wondering when you would finally come back to the village, the Hokage said in a neutral tone, staring deep into the eyes of his former student. I was busy gathering intel. It was the same response he always gave. The Sandaime was not surprised. Tell me then, will you see your godson this time? The neutral tone was kept as he spoke. He could speak about other matters later, this one needed to be solved quickly. He wanted to see what his options were. If things did not turn out as expected, he may have little to say to his former student. Yes. I will be staying around the village from now on. But I will leave every now and then to check with my contacts, Jiraiya replied with a small smile. He was relieved when he saw his sensei smile too. He would never admit it to anyone, but it always pained him when his sensei gave him the disappointed and look of disapproval he had been giving him over the past. Good, the Sandaime said. That leaves Tsunade. I truly hope she returns before I kick the bucket. I know Orochimaru is a lost cause, but it would make me happy to see the three of you together. That has been my wish, too, Jiraiya said before changing the subject. How is he? Flashback. Demon, get out of my shop! A shop owner hissed, glaring down at a 5-year-old Naruto. The man looked like he was ready to murder him with the look on his eyes. This was nothing new to him. But this time he had just done it on purpose because he knew the Sandaime was watching through his crystal ball. He had caught the old man peeping using the thing. So he knew that the Sandaime watched him more often than not. Sighing, Naruto rubbed himself before walking away from the shop. He was curious with how the Sandaime would react to this. He did not know anything that was happening. But he was sure that there was something that he was not being told that was happening. The first thought would be that the villagers did not see him as Uzumaki Naruto, but as a thing or a demon. He did not know what that meant. But even since the orphanage, he has been called that. Some even called him monster. It nearly broke his mind to being called with such names, and the amount of hatred the villagers poured out to him. Even when they spoke the names they called him with, it had so much venom that it sent chills down his spine. He did not know much about hatred or anything, but he was certain that the looks the villagers gave him were pure hatred. Thing, demon, and monster, all these names had him curious. Was he really a monster? If things continued like this, he would certainly end up believing that he was indeed a monster, a demon. Everyone looked at him with hatred and some fear. What was it that was feared? Simple, a monster. If these people called him a demon and looked at him with some barely hidden fear, then he was soon going to believe that is a monster. Sometimes even the kind smile of the Sandaime did not do enough to make him smile. By all these names he was called, he knew that there was something that was being hidden from him. He suspected that these people knew what it was, but they would not say what. Perhaps it was why they settled for calling a thing. He had heard something trying to call him something, but those close to them would reprimand, saying that the Sandaime had forbid them from saying it. He assumed that there was some punishment to those who said something that was forbidden. It was all given to him that whatever mystery lied behind his fate, the Sandaime knew. Well, saying that meant that it was no longer a mystery, especially when it was obvious that the whole village knew. It was a bit sad though. Everyone else knew something about him, and yet he knew nothing. The whole village was lying to him, including the Sandaime. And he could not figure out what it was that made it so. Well, he was just a 5-year-old brat, what more could he do? He also could not find anything about his parents. Everyone he asked simply said he was the spawn of a demon, while the Sandaime simply said his parents had died the night the Kyuubi attacked the village. Perhaps he was truly a demon spawn. It would explain why they called him a demon, or a monster. More he thought of it, he felt like he would not really cry if it was proved that he was indeed the spawn of village. At least he would know where he from. Their only thing it would prove would be that the villagers were right to call him a demon. But who cared what they thought of him? They weren't his family or anything. As far as he was concerned, he had no family. Wasn't it reasonable that he be proud of who he was then cry about it? If he was a demon, then he was a demon. There was nothing to cry about. If a demon was to come here and sneer at the villagers calling them humans, would they be angry about it? Certainly not. Why? Simple, because they were humans. Even a demon would not cry if humans called it a demon. That is, unless it was trying to fit in with the humans. Then perhaps it would pain it. He had seen it, ever since his mind could process things clearly. He had been trying to fit in into this world. But nothing was happening. He was only seeing rejection. No one wanted him. Perhaps he never truly belonged with the humans after all. Well, until everything could come out as clear, he decided to spend some time at the Forest of Death. He knew his way around the place. It was at least safe from the village. There was nothing that always glared at him in the forest. Mostly the animals just left him alone, and some tried to eat him. But who cared? If he died, no one would cry for him. He had no family. Being killed by animals would be a suitable death for a demon, right? He had read a book that said that demons were higher beings to humans. Would it not be an insult for a demon to be killed by a lowly human? Ouch, Naruto grunted as he hit the fence into the Forest of Death. This was not the first time he hit the fence. Perhaps it was because he was always lost in thoughts when he came to this place. Yap, this was going to drive him insane. And he was just turned 5 years old about a week ago. Other kids were probably laughing with their parents. It did not take long for him to reach his tree of comfort. He did not feel like climbing, so he settled for sitting down. He leaned against the tree's trunk, his knees clutched against his chest. Yes, this was a place of comfort. At least what he called it anyway. Like what he did always, he drifted off to sleep. He was alarmed when he felt something move close to him. His head snapped in all directions, until his blurry eyes laid on something. Hey, are you my dad? Perhaps it was because he had been asleep a few seconds ago, or he had been asking the question in a dream. He had been whatever. Whatever that was in front of him merely looked amused. He did not see anything further as darkness consumed him again. A little while later, he is waking up, Naruto heard as he finally regained his consciousness. He heard footsteps coming towards his way. They felt really slow. Child, an old voice, devoid of any emotion, called. Naruto was forced to wake up. The first thing he saw was an old man, really old man. His hair was white, long, and the thing that made him stiffen was those bloody red eyes. Where am I? He finally asked, mustering some courage to speak. That should be the least of your worries, the old man said, looking at Naruto carefully. He did not seem to be very fearful like he would have expected. Looking at those blue eyes, he realized something. You are not afraid of death. Naruto looked away from the old man. I don't really have anything to live for. Death is acceptable to me. At least I will escape this hell of a reality. But I did want to know who or what I am before dying. Kids were supposed to get their wishes, but it appeared that even the wish granters had denied him. I see, the old man said, looking to be in thought. What really interested him was that Naruto was tired of this reality, even though he was just 5 years old. It was not something that he thought he would ever see, a 5-year-old who was not afraid of death, and hated this reality. This worked perfectly for him. Who are you? Uchiha Madara. There was some pride and aura that was said with that introduction. Naruto could see that the old man was looking at him expectantly. You don't know me, do you? No, Naruto said, shaking his head. I am the legendary Uchiha Madara, and co-founder of Konoha. Naruto interrupted, smiling. I am just messing with you. I have heard of the name before. Old people are really easy to trick, especially when you know how to sell the act. He released a soft chuckle. Shouldn't you be dead or something? Well, I am just a 5-year-old, what do I know? But you really do look old. Can you even stand for 2 minutes without taking a break? Madara looked anything but amused. He turned around. I have no doubt he has Uzumaki blood in him. But he will need some modifications. I cannot handle a brat like that without snapping his neck. Get everything ready. Hi, can I go? The Sandaime is probably worried about me. Flashback end. So, the man has decided to watch me from afar, Naruto thought as he walked towards Ichiroku Ramen in a slow pace he had been using most often these days. Jiraiya of the Sannin was back in Konoha. He last saw the man when he was only 9 years old. The man had then disappeared from the village without a trace. He had watched him last time for a few moments before going. He had been able to pick out the man's presence back then. Perhaps it was because the man thought he was just a little brat. He had yet to attend the academy at that time. He only started the damn thing when he was 10. He had now returned. Of course he knew that the man had prized his father before anything back then. But then Minato died. It hit hard on the Sannin. Naruto could only guess that the man had blamed himself for the death of his prized student. Not that he cared for the man's feelings anyway. Things were going to be at least interesting from now on. But it would become annoying if Jiraiya and Kakashi continued to watch him while they read their porn. He looked up at the sky. It was getting dark and soon he would have to retreat to his cave. But he had to get some ramen first. He did not get any yesterday. The Ikarakas would certainly worry if he did not drop by to see them or eat for 2 days straight. It was better to erase all their worries. When is this going to become interesting? The kid has not done anything since I started checking up on him. How can anyone observe him for the whole day if all he does is lie around reading that black book? Jiraiya all but whined as he watched Naruto from afar with Kakashi. Some days he does do some interesting things, Kakashi responded, looking up from his book. I have yet to discover all his hobbies since I don't watch him all the time, but I can say for certain that he does do some interesting things, some of which could be considered dangerous and life-threatening. But he was not going to tell Jiraiya what Naruto does in the Forest of Death. I doubt he does anything, Jiraiya paused. He does seem lonely though. Does he have any friends? Kakashi shook his head. He does have a good relationship with Shikamaru and Chuji. And Kiba, from the Inuzuka clan, but this one is complicated since Naruto sort of bullies the boy. With Chuji and Shikamaru I can say that he has never called either of them friends, nor do they call him a friend. They all seem to see him as a classmate more than anything. Jiraiya sighed. This is unexpected. I thought he would have made some friends at this age. How does he hold up with being alone? His sensei had already told him some things, but he wanted to hear some from Kakashi's mouth. He seems content with spending his time alone. That is not healthy, Jiraiya muttered. I will have to change that. When are you going to introduce yourself to him anyway? Kakashi asked, watching the toad sage with a critical eye. He was curious to find an answer as it seemed that the man had come back to shoulder his responsibility. Soon. I need to know everything that I can about him. But I don't think I will tell him the truth though, not until after I have assessed his mental capacity. Kakashi nodded. He did wonder when soon will be though. Later, Naruto's apartment. I am coming, Naruto said as he went towards his door. Someone was knocking and he already knew who it was. What are you doing here at this time, Ayam? He asked, allowing the older girl to enter his humble cave. He noticed that she was wearing a long gown, but said nothing about it. I wanted to apologize for the other night. I have never gotten the chance to say I was sorry. Her cheeks gained a pink tint as she spoke these words. Naruto's expression of nonchalance was now a memory. He looked a bit off. It is okay. Things like that happen. Not really. But he wanted it to get it over with. What had happened is that Naruto had ditched class and so Irika had gone to the Ikarakas to see if they had seen him, but they had not. Ayam had started to look for him with Irika since she did not like it when he ditched class. She came here while Irika went elsewhere. Let us say that Naruto placed something on himself that shut off his senses. He was tired of having to know that someone was coming after him. Since he had no doubt that Iruka would look for him, he had placed the seal to make the chase fun. But Ayam had come at a wrong time. When she came here, he was dancing to some loud music, naked, after taking a shower. The end was that the older teen had seen him naked, and wet. After that, she shrieked and ran away from his apartment. Naruto was left frozen for a few moments. No, it does not, Ayam argued. I thought it was only fair since I saw that you two take a peek. What are you getting at, Ayam? Naruto questioned, in a slight panicked tone. He took an unconscious step back. He certainly did not like where this seemed to be going. I want to even the score. It is only fair that I do so. With that said, she looked down, blushing furiously, and slipped her gown on the cold floor. My happy place, Naruto muttered to himself as he stood on a tree branch, looking straight down at a waterfall. Down the waterfall, where the water was splashing down in abundance, was a pool that he always liked to swim within. It was still early in the morning, and there was the graduation exam to attend. He would attend that later on. But right now, he just wanted to be in his happy place before going there. He had a cold night, and wanted to remove Ayam's naked body away from his mind. It was not something he wanted to see. It was giving him bad dreams. He would not have expected her to go that far to even the score. Well, he did understand that what happened happened. He just did not think that she would do that to even the score. That girl must be crazy. Were all women that crazy? Who the hell does that? Naruto shook his head. It was not the first time that he was seeing a woman's naked body. He has been exposed to of all kinds, big, small, black and white. He was by no means a prude. And he held no shame in staring. But Ayam was just different. Perhaps it was because he has known her all his life than any other girl in his life. To him, Ayam was someone he prized very much. He would certainly bisect anyone who touches her. Seeing her like that would make him think differently. She was that present that he liked having around wrapped. Perhaps she had done it just to put them on the same boat. Sighing, Naruto took off his shirt and was only left with his pants. He was certainly going to be late for the exam. He had spent much time lost in thought. But it did not matter, as long as he got there in time for perform his tests. He walked away from the tree and walked over to the edge of the waterfall. Then, he jumped down. Oh, shouldn't we do something? I don't think that is safe, Kakashi said, looking at Nico, an Umbu, who was watching Naruto with him. For an academy student, it was dangerous to jump that high, especially when they did not know water walking. It was not something that an academy student could do. Nico shook her head. No, he does that each time he comes here. I almost blew my cover the first time he came here, she stated calmly. This place was not known to many people. She was positive that Naruto was the only one who used this place to wash himself. The water was very warm. She had gone into the water once as she was curious to why the blonde favored this place. How often does he come here? Kakashi asked with a curious tone. Ever since he started watching the blonde, he had never seen him come here. He was surprised when the blonde woke up early and sneaked out of the village. It was also a surprise that the blonde could manage that feat. He comes here 2 or 3 times a week, Nico responded. But on some weeks, he comes here like each day. On weekends he can spend more than 5 hours, just lying in the water. It is odd that he would come here today of all days. I mean, the graduation is about to start in 30 minutes, he doubted that he would make it in time for the graduation without any help. It is no longer 30 minutes left, it is less than that. You have to understand that he spent a few more minutes on that tree, thinking perhaps, Nico said in a thoughtful tone. Perhaps something may have happened. It was unusual for him to sit out before getting into the water. He usually came in and jumped inside the water without so much of a second thought, sometimes still wearing his clothes. He is going to be late, and may miss the exams. And if he misses the exams, he won't get another chance to graduate. He may most likely return to the academy again, Kakashi said in thought. Seriously, the Sandaime was expecting Naruto to pass this term. And he was probably worried wherever he was. I think he is aware of that. Naruto is not stupid, but I do wonder how he will get out of this one. With the little time he has left, he won't be able to make it to the academy, given the distance between here and the academy. We will have to help him, and come up with an excuse to help him with Iruka, Kakashi said, ready to act. Nico nodded in response. They waited for a few more minutes. Jiraiya appeared. What are you guys doing here? The others have started the exams. If Naruto does not hurry up, the exams will be over, Jiraiya said, his voice a little bit on edge. Look, Nico said, pointing down at Naruto, who was climbing up using a rope tied up on a tree he had his clothes placed. It made it believable on how he could climb without using any chakra to climb up the cliff. He never even walked on the water all his time at the pool. He always just swam like a civilian. He still won't make it to the academy in time. I will just have to take him there. I am faster, and he can make it in time. Jiraiya did not wait for either Kakashi or Nico to respond. He simply disappeared in a cloud of smoke. Guess I better go to the academy and stall, Kakashi said, releasing a sigh. By the time Kakashi got to the academy, Naruto was already there. What the hell? The Sharingan wielder exclaimed, seeing the blonde enter the class, looking nonchalant, as always. What the hell, indeed. Jiraiya agreed with Kakashi. He arrived here a few seconds ago. I don't know how he did it. Then you did not bring him here? But I left both of you at the site, Kakashi said, trying to understand what the hell was happening. He had left both Naruto and Jiraiya to come here. He could not exactly say that he had been using his fastest speed in coming here, but he got the idea that he would arrive before either Naruto or Jiraiya. No, Jiraiya said, shaking his head. When I talked to him about taking him to the academy, he said he did not need any help and was quite aware of the fact that others had already started the final exam, the Sannin explained. He had been confused to why he would act so slowly when knowing that others had already started. It would have been a bit fair if he had been practicing, but he was not doing any of that. Then what happened? I tried talking him about it, but he just jumped into the forest and disappeared, without a trace. I left a clone there to look for him while I came here, but when I arrived, he was walking just like that. It was like he had never been there. He could not have left the waterfall faster than me. It is just impossible. Kakashi actually nodded in agreement. There has to be some other explanations. The distance could only be covered via teleportation in a short period of time. Naruto was just an academy student. And so far he could tell, he had not displayed any shinobi ability. Perhaps it had been a Kage Bunshin we had been watching. Kage Bunshin is a Jonin level technique. And he should not know it. They don't teach the jutsu in the academy. It should also be impossible for someone that young to make a shadow clone, but then again, Naruto is not normal, Jiraiya explained, completely confused about the whole matter. He could not understand what had just happened. And if it had been a Kage Bunshin we were watching, it would mean that he knew he was being watched. It should not be possible for him to know that we were watching him. They were top shinobi, elites in the village. A mere academy student could have not sensed their presence while they were hiding. It was just impossible. Jiraiya nodded in agreement. A shadow clone can explain this, but that also leaves more questions we cannot answer. Kakashi nodded. We will just have to find out without asking him about it. If we ask him about, it will only make him think otherwise. Some people don't like being questioned, especially when they have done nothing wrong. We will find out. It is not like he can hide it forever, but once I introduce myself to him, he may tell me, Jiraiya said in thought. You did not introduce yourself to him back then? No, Jiraiya responded, shaking his head. It was not the right time. I was most focused on getting him to the exams. I just told him that I had been sent by the Sandaime. I will introduce myself in the right moment, soon. In class, I almost thought you were not going to show up, Shikamaru said, looking at the blonde seated behind him. Others had already made their turns in participation of the exam, and have already been given their headbands. He knew for certain that Naruto did not want to return to this place again. I wanted to make a dramatic entrance, Naruto responded calmly. It would have been better if I had arrived after everyone had taken their turns. Since when are you into something so troublesome? Shikamaru asked with a raised brow. Really, Naruto avoided everything that was troublesome, that is unless it was interesting enough for him. If he found interest in something, then he would not mind indulging in it. But if it was only troublesome, he would avoid it unless forced. Since I woke, Naruto responded with a nonchalant shrug of his shoulder. Shikamaru did not bother to question about it. Naruto would not tell if he did not want. But if he wanted to tell him anything, he would fill him in all the details. He had caught that dismissive tone covered in indifference Naruto used when did not want to get into a topic. I doubt you would have been at your apartment while we started. Nah, that would be stupid. I have no doubt that the Sandaime would have someone drag me here, even in my birthday suite. I was at my happy place, Naruto responded, turning to face the window. He was losing interest in the current conversation. Shikamaru nodded. Just in case you think of asking, I have already taken my turn, the Nara said before slumping down on his desk. Since he had already passed the damn troublesome exam, he had already graduated. He was not going to see how others did. He had already foreseen how already would do after all. That must mean you have also done your part, Chuji, Naruto said, never looking at the Akimichi as he spoke. His eyes were still looking through the window. It was as if there was something interesting going on outside the walls of the academy that he was busy watching. Yeah, Chuji responded and then raised his forehead protector for Naruto to see. While he knew that the blonde was not looking at him directly, he knew that he could see him through the reflection of the window. Most have graduated. You should be next soon. Naruto nodded but said nothing further. There was nothing else to say. The day had started so well. To think that Jiraiya would show up in his happy place because he was worried that he may miss the final exam, perhaps going to his happy place had been a wise choice after all. The Sannin was going to come at him. He was waiting for that to happen though. It would be interesting how the man would introduce himself. But it had to be done sooner. He would become bored and lose interest in hearing what he has to say if the man took his time. If that happens, he will most likely brush off the man. But anything was possible. How am I going to spend this day? Naruto questioned, inwardly. He was surely going to knock off early today. That would mean that he had the whole day to himself. He did not feel like doing anything today, after the exam. He may spend the day relaxing at his happy place. I wish Aika was home. Uzumaki Naruto, Iruka called, smiling. He knew Naruto would pass this exam. The requirements for passing the exam had never been a problem for the blonde. He had never struggled with creating normal bunshins, henge or kawarimi. While he has awful theory scores, this was something he did perfectly. But with regards to theory, it was just for the lack of trying. The blonde never really tried to perform better. He did not know much about any other skills, in terms of taijutsu and kunai throwing. He had never actually seen Naruto fight, even with the basic taijutsu they taught at the academy. The blonde always played shikamaru when he had to demonstrate, or he could just ditch class. No, that was not right. He had demonstrated some stances alone. If Iruka could remember it well, he did the stances. His best was okay. His kunai throwing skills were okay. He always got 1 out of 2 or none at all. But that was just for the lack of trying also. Even with all that, he had no doubt that the blonde was going to pass. With the way things started this year, he was positive that Naruto would do anything that would get him out of this prison, as he called it. The blonde had lost interest in everything they taught here within his first week of attending. He had yet to teach the blonde then, but he knew since their other teachers talked much about him when they met. One thing was that they never bothered with the blonde. Since Naruto showed no interest in anything they taught, they liked it since they were not even thinking of teaching him anyway. They just ignored him like he was not there. In everything that they did, Naruto was never included. Naruto could even ditch classes for a whole week and no one would care enough to check on him. They were probably wishing that he never comes when he did those kinds of things. What made it worse was that Naruto was just indifferent towards the whole thing. It was like he did not give a damn about it. It would be a lie if he thought that he did not feel animosity towards the blonde the first time he saw him. But he realized that Naruto was just a child. Perhaps his lack of interest in anything had been forced because when he liked something he would be denied of it. That could have led him to lose interest in anything because he knew it would never work out. If he had tried to study when he was still being taught by haters, he would have failed anyway, since they would screw him over. Things were going to change after today, though. Perhaps when he sees the ninja world, he may become lively again. The Sandaime had said that the blonde was a very lively person, but now what was left was just a mask of indifference. A vein popped on Iruka's head when he realized that Naruto had not responded to his call. He must have slept while the others were taking their turns. Naruto! Get down here! The Chunin yelled. Naruto sighed, rubbing his left eye. Is it my time already? He asked himself before he stood. I guess it is, he thought walking down the classroom. Why do you have to make everything so bothersome, Naruto? Iruka asked, in a tired tone, but he kept his smile. Really, he was curious. He just could not understand why the blonde would make things so bothersome. To his annoyance, Naruto shrugged. I like them that way. Well, I hope you do well, Naruto, Mizuki said, giving Naruto that fake smile he could so give. The blonde did not understand why the man had to even bother pretending. He could clearly see the glaring hatred deep within those eyes. If you were going to pretend, you at least had to be good at it. Only pros had to play this game. And it was played like this. Thank you, Mizuki-sensei. It really means a lot to me. The blonde flashed Mizuki a warm smile, a smile that could make the heart of a girl clench. That is if they did not see him as the weirdo. He was really smiling at the man, but for other reasons. But the words were empty. This is what made it difficult for anyone to tell if his smile was fake or not. Perhaps no one even knew he had a fake smile. Do well. Iruka will be proud if you do that. I will also be proud. You are one of my students after all, Mizuki said, returning the smile. Deep inside, he did not know whether to smile or freak out. This was the first time that Naruto ever smiled at him like that. I will ensure that I make Iruka proud, sensei, Naruto said, grinning back at the man. The act had to be sold. Your audience had to be left clueless and thinking you were just a 13-year-old boy. For an actor, you had to capture the imaginations of your audience and make everything seem real. Naturally, he excelled in that. Okay, Naruto, you know the drill, Iruka said, smiling. He also found it odd that Naruto and Mizuki could converse like that. He had never ever seen them talking like this. Naruto nodded, and did what he was requested. He did all that was requested of him. The jutsus were easy to do given that he had a chakra control that was acceptable to him. Doing a normal jutsu like a normal bunshin would have been hard for him if he did not have extensive chakra control. His chakra was a little above normal for someone his age. Okay, a little was an understatement. His chakra reserves were a lot. It took a lot to control it to a level that he found acceptable. But it was not yet perfect. His chakra pools were forced to increase because he was a jinchuriki of the Kyuubi. The tailed beast had been close to him even when he was still inside his mother's womb. The chakra of the beast had been affecting him even before he was born. There was also the fact that he was Uzumaki. Despite not being a fully blooded Uzumaki, he had the blood flowing inside of him. The Uzumaki were famous for their special chakra. And there were those other secrets. Congratulations, Naruto, you pass, Iruka said, smiling brightly as he motioned for Mizuki to give the blonde a forehead protector. Naruto looked at the man with the same smile he had. But his eyes reflected nothing but boredom. He could see the barely hidden frown the man had on his face, eyebrows twitching. It seemed that the man was sickened by the thought of him becoming a Konoha shinobi. The twitching may have been because he saw the bored look on his eyes. Despicable. Hatred truly made man blind and ignorant. He sighed inwardly and took the forehead protector from Mizuki. Well, he could poke some fun into it. Thank you, Mizuki-sensei. You have been a wonderful teacher. I don't think I would have been graduating if not for the fact that you were good to me. Mizuki was twitching, barely restraining himself. Why? Because what Naruto had said was a lie and yet the blonde stated it like it was the hard truth. He said it like he meant it. But Mizuki knew better. He knew that he was anything but good to the blonde. For certain, he knew the blonde was not that stupid. And the smile Naruto gave him did not make him feel good at all. It almost felt like he had said everything on purpose just to screw with him. He decided to go with it though. It was my job. After those words, he felt like he had just played right into the blonde's hands. The previous statement had been sarcastic. It felt like the blonde was giving him a thumbs up and a grin. Yes, it was your job to be good to me, teach me, but you did not. Yet I still passed. Cheers to you. As soon as he made that conclusion, he was ready to snap Naruto's neck. But Naruto had already lost interest in him. He turned to face Iruka, and flashed him a small smile before walking away. He placed the headband on his pocket while walking away. He was eager to become a shinobi officially, but not wearing a Konoha headband it did not mean much to him. With everything that has happened so far, very little in this village meant something to him. He was the outcast of the village after all. And they did not give a damn about him. Why would he care for them if they did not? They thought he was useless, a weirdo, and he would be useless to them. But he would fight for himself, and those little he cared for. He climbed up with his look of nonchalance back on track. He looked at the Hyuga girl to see that she was staring straight at him with a small smile. He raised that brow when he saw that she did not look away when he looked back at her. It was a bit of a surprise to see her look at him directly. The girl had gained some confidence within her to look at him like. He smiled at her, but then the normal business went ahead. She looked away from him, like always. He suppressed the urge to roll his eyes. For a Hyuga, she was kind of a pathetic. However, she was a good person that he was sure of. But that did not change the fact she was pathetic for a Hyuga. What kind of a Hyuga lacks self-confidence? Those bastards had self-confidence in abundance. It was even more pathetic given that she was the daughter of the clan head. Her younger sister had more guts than she did. The Hyugas have even claimed to be mighty now with the Uchiha gone. With their all-seeing eyes, they claimed they were the strongest clan within the village. He thought nothing of it, he could care less. Finally reaching his seat, he noticed that his classmates were just indifferent about his passing. It was likely that they knew he would pass the exam given that he has never failed to make a clone. Well, only an idiot would fail such an exam. Since the exam started, no one had yet to fail. He doubted that anyone would fail the petty excuse for an exam. While he failed the written tests, he has never failed when it came to Bunshin no Jutsu. So it was no surprise to him that they were just indifferent about the matter. For someone who is eager to leave this place, you don't seem too excited now that you have finally graduated, Shikamaru said, looking at Naruto at the corner of his eyes. Really, the blonde did not look like he was happy that he was going to leave this place now that he has graduated. He looked bored more than anything. I am happy, Naruto responded. Nothing in him supported the claim. His expression was the same as always. He was a little happy, but he preferred not to celebrate, especially since he already knew he was going to graduate. It was no surprise to him that he had passed. You surely don't look that way. The same can be said for you, Naruto responded with a little shrug of his shoulders. The Nara was either thrilled or just happy. He had the same expression as he always did. But the other kids were happily flaunting their forehead protectors. They were really happy that they had finally become genins. As Shikamaru gave a shrug of his own, ending the current train of thoughts. Who do you think will be your teammates? He could only guess who his teammates were going to be. But he was not sure about anything. Shikamaru said nothing for a moment, waiting for Naruto. He knew the blonde was aware of what he was talking about. I have not thought of that. I don't particularly care who is placed on the same team with me. As long as they are not annoying, it would be suffocating if he ended up with annoying teammates. But he would only be genin for a short period of time, if things go as planned. The Nara nodded. I just hope that I am not placed in the same team with you. My life would be hell if I ended up with you in a team. With Naruto, things would only become bothersome. He would rather avoid those. However, sometimes it could not be said for Naruto. The blonde indulged in bothersome tasks, as long as they were interesting enough for him. I can say the same thing, Naruto said, turning his face into the window. I want things to be a little interesting to entertain and keep me busy. With you there is no entertainment, but boredom. Shikamaru shrugged. I am fine with it, as long as I enjoy my day and don't do anything too troublesome. Come on guys, be a little happy about this. We are officially shinobi now. Regardless of age, shinobi were shinobi. Having a headband was a ticket for everything. No one could tell you that you were too young to do something. Being a shinobi made age irrelevant. Both Shikamaru and Naruto merely shrugged in response, but Kiba was the one to speak. This is a good chance for us to get stronger. We will finally get to leave the village walls. Even the thought of leaving those large gates brought him to smile like a man. It will be nice to leave the walls, Shikamaru agreed. He too had never left the walls of the village. They were never allowed to leave the village. But since they were now shinobi, they could leave the village for missions. Congratulations to everyone. I am glad all of you passed the exams. I had expected that you would, but now that you have proven me right, I want all of you to know that I am proud of all you, Iruka said, smiling at his students. That is for today. Return in 3 days at 8 to find out which team you will be assigned in. Later, Naruto was lying low inside his apartment, reading his little black book, when an Umbu appeared inside his apartment. He quickly recognized the mask as one of Root. Danzo must have something for him. But the man had not been in contact with him for at least 2 months. But he did not bother to wonder what the man would want from him. Wondering would not help, it was just better to find out from the man himself. When dealing with Danzo, you did not have to assume things. Making such a deal would get you into trouble. The man really timed sending his dogs to him. He was never called by the man when there were Umbu watching him. He always brought his dogs whenever there was no one watching. The man probably knew when Umbu took turns and shifts in watching him. He was knowledgeable in almost everything that went about inside the village walls after all. The man had spies everywhere, and his eyes were watching everything. Jiraiya and Kakashi had stopped watching him about an hour ago when they realized that he was not going to do anything. After leaving the academy, he had gone back to his happy place to swim for about an hour. When he was done with that, he came back here and settled down. It would certainly be annoying to anyone to watch a 13-year-old read a book all day long. What do you want? Naruto asked, just for the sake of asking. The man probably did not know anything. Danzo was quite tight-lipped when it came to his business. He was also not too trusting, even to his Root, who worshipped him. But there were a few who he trusted completely, that is if the man can do that. Danzo-sama wishes to speak with you, the Root Umbu gave the blonde a flat response. He was only told to tell the blonde that he was wanted. There were no questions asked when it came to tasks assigned by Danzo. Fine, disappear. Someone is coming here, the Root Umbu did not need to be told twice. Without a second of hesitation, he was gone from the apartment. Naruto knew that the Sandaime was probably busy with something, hence the Root Umbu was able to show himself like that. Sighing, Naruto created a Kage Bunshin and left it reading. He hinged himself and activated a seal within his body that erased his chakra signature. Since he could not completely hide his chakra because his control over it was not perfect, he compensated by using a seal that did it for him. In this way, he was just a civilian, no one could sense him. The only shinobi who could do that is a sensory type. One would never tell he was there unless they could see him. In his henge form, Naruto left the apartment before anyone could come. He walked within the streets of Konoha quietly. The atmosphere was not hostile as it normally was when he walked within the streets in his real form. It was not the first time that he walked in the streets in a henge. Whenever he had to do other business that Naruto ought not to be doing, he always put up a henge while a clone played his part. He turned into the dark alley around his neighborhood and disappeared. The Root bases were always cold and empty. Sometimes he hated the feeling, especially when it felt like this was where he belonged. However, over the past 3 years, he has learned to live with it and just ignore everything. It was not like he was going to keep coming here forever. Danzo's days were numbered, so were his. But Danzo was surely going to die first. It may not come soon, but it would surely come. The corridors of the base were dimly lit as Naruto walked towards the room he knew Danzo would be waiting for him. It was sometimes amusing to him that feared men like Uchiha Itachi and Orochimaru once walked under the same roof as him. They all worked for Danzo once in their lives. Even Kakashi had worked for the man. Orochimaru was the most interesting one. He certainly was an interesting fella. No doubt his body held so many secrets. The thought of it made him curious enough to wish of ripping the Sanin's body apart to find out the secrets it holds. He would love nothing more than to bisect the man while he searches through his head to see what made him tick. The man liked to play the doctor. The joke would be on him if he decided to change roles. The man would surely obsess over killing him if he survives the bisection. He had an obsessive nature about him that made him dangerous, and yet easy to predict. That man should have waited for me at the entrance, and tell me what he wants. Coming all the way towards his throne room is becoming a task, Naruto mumbled as his small feet dragged him through the dimly lit corridors of the base. He finally arrived at the room. The man was alone. It was a bit of a surprise to him to find the man alone in the room. You called, the blonde said as he stood a few feet away from Danzo. Danzo ignored the blatant lack of respect. Even his subordinates had gotten used to this. The blonde never once called him Danzo-sama, but he did not care, as long as he did what he was told. Yes, I have called you. I am listening, Naruto said, folding his hands across his chest. If there was one thing he learned about working with Danzo, it was that you could never let your guard down and never make a mistake. A little slip and he could have the man blackmailing him. The man was cautious and always watched whoever he worked with. But of course, he could have everyone chase his clone for a week while he hid somewhere doing light training. One of my agents was captured within the Sound country's border. I have received word from Orochimaru that it was he who captured him. The agent was on an important mission he was able to complete but was captured upon his return. In exchange for the agent, Orochimaru wants something in return, Danzo explained, not bothering to explain the details. Naruto showed nothing of a change in his expression. He never expected Danzo to inform him what the mission was. The fact that Danzo was willing to retrieve the man meant that he wanted something from the agent. Where does this affect me? I don't particularly like dealing with snakes, the blonde responded calmly, not the least showing any interest in what Danzo had just said. My agent has a message that he will give to you. Danzo threw a scroll at Naruto, who caught it gracefully. The exchange will be at the Valley of the End in about an hour. Get the message and clean the mess. I see, Naruto said, as a root umbu appeared and gave him his Eni mask. I will return later then, the blonde said before he left the room. He was only being sent to the mission because he was the only who could get to the location in time. It would be interesting to see who Orochimaru will send to meet him. He did not think that the man would go to the meeting place himself. It was given that it was obvious that Danzo would never show up himself. He always sent others to play his dirty tricks. His own hands were defiled by the blood of those he had been tasked to clean. Get me Fu, Danzo ordered to the agent who had handed Naruto his mask. Return with him when you find him. Hi, Danzo-sama, the root agent said before flickering away from the room, leaving Danzo alone. I wonder why Orochimaru specifically requested the cleaner, Danzo thought inwardly. No one knew of the cleaner's real identity, aside from a few of his agents. And he knew they would not talk. What was putting it wrong? They could not talk. He had placed a seal on them to ensure that. He wondered what the man wanted. Valley of the End. It was not the first time that he had come here. He had been brought here when he was just 8 years old. This place held some historic moments. It was part of Konoha's history. Madara and Hashirama were both founders of Konohagakure. These statues in this valley were of both them. They had created this place while battling in their last duel that resulted in the death of Madara. A pity he never got a chance to watch the battle. He really enjoyed watching good fights. While he knew a good fight between powerful opponents, he was not really powerful. While he excelled in Fuinjutsu, stealth skills, and knew Kenjutsu, he could not fight in the front lines. Well, he could, he just would not. It would be dangerous for him given that the only way he can beat a Chunin is through speed and outsmarting him and catching him by surprise. He did like explosives, they made some pretty fireworks. Finally, we can get over with this so I can get back home and get some sleep, Naruto stated as someone made his appearance known. It was already dark and he just wanted to leave this place. He was getting bored already. Especially when he was not usually this kind of mission. While sometimes he usually silenced Rudambu, this was not his usual kind of mission. He was no delivery boy. A little impatient, are we? Kabuto stated, looking straight at the masked young fellow before him. He tried to see who it might be behind the mask, but there was nothing, not even a trace of chakra. The chakra signature was completely hidden. If it was not that he could see the person, he would not know he was there. It was kind of creepy, and a little unnerving. He had never known anyone who could hide his or her chakra signature completely. While it was possible, no shinobi has ever achieved it. Patience is not the matter, Yakushi, Naruto stated in an unfamiliar voice. You once worked with Danzo. You know that he likes things done in time. But Kabuto was supposed to have been killed long ago when Danzo feared that he was becoming too powerful. But the cleanup was not a success. Kabuto merely smiled, not that Naruto could see it with all the darkness. Danzo always likes his pets young. I really have no time to indulge in such trivial matters, Yakushi, Naruto stated, walking closer to Kabuto. Make him appear so we can get this over with. He was talking about the root agent that has been captured. Since Kabuto was not with him, it was obvious that he was somewhere else. Kabuto snapped his fingers and another man appeared with the root umbu. Kabuto spoke. I have always been interested. Danzo's infamous cleaner. You specialize in assassinations, and have succeeded in all your missions, no trace left, no witnesses. Where did Danzo find you? Naruto did not respond. He merely handed Kabuto the scroll he was given by Danzo, and received the root agent. Where did Orochimaru find you? Danzo had played everything well to have you and your mother kill each other. Did he find you somewhere drowning in despair and sell you one of his iconic persuasive speeches that had you following him like a love-sick puppy? Kabuto merely chuckled. Well, at least I am not a pet that can be cleaned when I have outlived my usefulness. Good for you, Naruto responding before jumping away with the root umbu. Well, that was certainly interesting, Kabuto said, turning to leave. It was indeed late, and his master was already waiting for him. Best he not keep Orochimaru waiting. The man did not like being made to wait. He was the number 2, best he not disappoint, or his master will be looking for another number 2 soon. Orochimaru had no love for incompetence, that he knew very well. Root base. The mission was a success, Naruto said, handing Danzo the scroll he was given. It was obvious that Orochimaru was not interested in finding out more about the mission the root agent was doing. There was something that was going on that he did not know. The mission could have been a farce by Danzo. He had no doubt that the man still did business with the snake Sannin. What of the agent? Danzo inquired with as little interest as he could. It made it difficult to tell whether he cared or not. The man was mostly worried about missions than anything else. He certainly did not care if his agents died. As long as missions were completed, he cared for nothing. He said the other part of the mission was him, and only he could give the report. With that in mind, I returned with him. He is currently at Ground Zero, Naruto reported. He had a feeling that Danzo knew of this already. But he was not going to be too curious about it. Good, Danzo stated calmly. Everything went according to plan. You are dismissed. Naruto did not leave. I have repaid my debt enough. This was my last mission for you. I do not expect you to call me again, the blonde stated smoothly. He did not fear what Danzo would say about this. It really did not matter what the Warhawk thought. It was not like he could actually force him to do anything. Not so surprisingly, Danzo nodded. I was expecting you to say something like that since you have now graduated from the academy. Tomorrow you should be filling your shinobi registration form. Naruto nodded. I am not surprised that you are calm about my departure. You were useful, but your services are no longer needed, Danzo responded in a dismissive tone. Naruto felt no insult in those words, even though the man was practically telling him that he was now a useless tool. Sarutobi is going to put you in the same team as Sasuke. I do know that the reason for that is to keep you in control. You are actually proud of this because it is the decision you would have normally taken, Naruto stated calmly. It was rare to find the man happy with the choice made by the Sannin. Though I do not believe it is I who needs to be put in check, it is my dear prisoner. The Sharingan is a bit useful when it comes to bijus, but your Uchiha has yet to awaken his Sharingan. The Sannin was not taking any chances with the Kyuubi. But to think that Sasuke would manipulate something inside of him, that was just laughable. The greatest manipulator the world has ever seen could not manipulate him. He had actually played the player. But that was all thanks to his innocence and age. He is an Uchiha, and once he starts doing real missions, the Sharingan will awaken, Danzo stated. He had no doubt the Uchiha would awaken his Sharingan. It was all about the right time and the right environment. Though if he had been given to you ago, he would have been in possession of a fully matured Sharingan or perhaps the Manjikyu Sharingan, Naruto stated, turning away from Danzo. We have never met, and I have never existed in your records. Should it be otherwise, there were consequences. Ho? Surprisingly, Danzo sounded amused. Is that a threat? Naruto released a chuckle as he went further away from Danzo. Hardly, the blonde said, disappearing into the darkness of the base. That is a first, Danzo-sama, Fu said after Naruto had disappeared. While the blonde never had any respect to Danzo, he never showed any hostile attitude towards Danzo. He had never for once threatened any of the root agents. Well, it is his last day, or so he thinks. If he thinks that it is over, he has one thing coming for him, Danzo stated calmly. It was only over until he said so. No one just walked away from his grip, especially with what Naruto knows. Should we keep an eye on him? Naruto was not the one to be erased, not because they could not, but because he held the Kyuubi. The bijou was one weapon Danzo was not willing to throw away. No, there is no need for that, Danzo said with a wave of his hand. Get me Toru and so we can know what Orochimaru gave him. Hi, Danzo-sama. The following day, I miss my friend, Naruto muttered walking towards his kitchen. While he had people he called family, he had but one true friend. Perhaps today would be a good day to visit him. They had not been in contact for about a month now. They mostly kept their meetings subtle. His friend had graduated last June, which makes it a year now. Sighing, Naruto looked inside his fridge, looking for something to eat. He wanted something that would be welcomed within his stomach. By welcomed he means something that will stay there, something that he will eat and feel satisfied until the next shift. There were some meals that were only made for taste. He only ate such meals when he was overjoyed and when he wanted to starve himself. He made himself some black tea and settled down on his dining table. It was always like this every morning. He always ate his meals alone, that is if Aika was not present. He never had any visitor inside his apartment. Now that he thought of it, the only people who have ever been into his apartment were Aika and the Sandaime, aside from Root and the normal Umbu. Only Shikamaru, Chuji and Shino knew where he lived. He had not shown Shino where he lived, but the Aburame had a tendency of sending his flies to his academy classmates. When he had found out this, he was able to scare them away from him. It was enough that the Sandaime always watched him with his crystal ball, and added to that, there were Umbu would watch him most of the days. Having his own classmate keep an eye on him would only serve to annoy him to the point of suicide. Yes, he would certainly have to kill something to get over his annoyance. Still, he was certain that once he was assigned to a team, he would no longer be watched by the Umbu. This would surely give him some room to breathe. A knock on the door brought him out of his musings. Naruto got up and went towards the door before opening. "My flowers," he said, looking at the flowers Ino carried rather than the girl herself. "I was starting to suffocate without a new scent within this apartment." Not even a hello? It was obvious to Ino that he did not give a damn about her. He was concerned about the flowers than her. Well, it was not like she wanted him to be concerned about her or anything, but his attitude was not something she expected. She was a girl. He could not just ignore her like that. Not even a hello? It was then that Naruto looked into her eyes. She stared straight into that left crystal blue eye of his for a moment. She realized that she had never seen his right eye. She doubted that no one has. It was always covered under his hair. No matter what he did, you could never see it. It was like his hair was glued to his face. She was a bit annoyed when she saw that deep inside the eye was nothing but boredom. Naruto did not say a word for a moment. "Take off your shoes and close the door behind you," he stated, in a tone that left no room for anything else. It was tone that told you to do it or otherwise. But he was not just speaking to anyone, he was speaking to Yamanaka Ino, and no one bossed her around. "Excuse me? Take off your shoes and close the door behind you," Naruto repeated the same words and in the same tone. It was like he was a record that was put on a repeat. He had just said it exactly he did at first. "Who do you think you are to boss me around?" Ino questioned, glaring at the back of the blonde as he was already walking away from her. The nerve of the guy. He was walking away from her just like that, and he expected her to do as he commanded. Who the hell did he think he was? "Uzumaki Naruto, your customer." That ought to finalize everything. But Naruto was not quite done. "But if you feel that you do not wish to do what I have said, you can close the door and leave, with your flowers. The choice is yours." He disappeared from her view when those words left his mouth. Ino was completely left speechless. She had certainly not expected him to be like that. "Fine," she huffed, and puffed before taking off her shoes. "And he wonders why every girl calls him a weirdo," she mumbled to herself. "But he is not bad looking. In fact, he is actually good looking. I wonder why I have never noticed." Ino trailed off in her thoughts. "My God, what am I thinking?" But then she just shrugged. It was not like Sasuke was watching her or something. It would be hell if Sakura was watching her. As long as no one was watching, it was okay. She sighed and entered the room, carrying the flowers she had brought. Ino was shocked to the core when she entered Naruto's apartment. On the outside, it looked someone who had no care for nothing lived inside. Her mother had refused to tell her who she was taking the flowers to, so she had no idea that she was coming to Naruto. She was truly shocked to see how neat the place was. Everything was placed in order, and it certainly did not smell like man. It smelled good. How could the weirdo live in such a place? It was just unbelievable. She had thought he was one of those guys who cared not for cleanliness. He was always indifferent and nonchalant towards everything around him. And so she had thought he would be same inside his own home. Of course she knew that he lived alone. It was no secret to anyone that her fellow blonde was an orphan. But then again, most orphans lived at the orphanage instead of living on their own since they would have no one to take of them. Not bad for someone without parents to grind him to clean up his mess, Ino commented as she walked towards the little kitchen, where her fellow blonde was sitting, sipping his tea in silence. It was either she had spoken before he could, or he just found it not worth responding before she spoke again. "My mother told me to bring this flowers to you," she said. "Sorry for the late delivery." Naruto sipped his tea as though he had not heard the blonder girl. When she was about to explode, he spoke in a smooth tone, bordering nonchalance. "I see, I have been waiting for a few days now." Ino was now becoming irritated with his attitude. He spoke like he was not even speaking to her. He was focused on his tea, not on her. "No wonder the girls dislike you. You are frustrating." This seemed to catch his attention. He placed his cup down, tilted his head a little and stared at her. "What girls?" He paused for a moment. You mean those annoying less fangirls? I certainly would not want to be liked by either of them. Who cares for a girl without? Certainly not me. But you on the other have a package, but you are just like them, the difference is that you have, Naruto responded, giving Ino a charming smile that almost melted her if she was not insulted. I am not annoying. He had put her in the same class as the rest of the fangirls. That did not make her feel good at all. How loud. No wonder no other boy shows interest in you girls. Your very voice is enough to give me a headache, Naruto said, walking away from the girl, with his flower. If you say more, I swear I will pound you until I knock each your teeth out, all of them, Ino spoke in a very dangerous low tone. Naruto turned to look at her with a raised brow. Feisty little Tang, he muttered quietly. But did not say anything to infuriate the girl. He certainly did not want to get into a meaningless argument. Stay still, I am going to get your money, he said, walking past the girl towards his room. A few moments later he returned. Finally, Ino said, as though she had been waiting for him for quite a long time. I am running low on cash. If I continue to spend more, I won't have any money to pay for my rent, and the landlord is not very nice to those who don't pay, Naruto mumbled, looking at his wallet. Well, he was going to become a shinobi soon, he would get some increase in allowance, and he will be able to pay up what needs to be paid. But it was not that he had no other stash of cash he was not supposed to have. The money that was running out was the one he was supposed to have in his wallet. You pay your own rent? Ino asked, looking surprised. She had no idea that he had to worry about his own rent. So that is why Mom told me to tell you to come and help out at the garden, if you wanted. I think I will pass on that, Naruto said, walking closer to Ino, very close. He stopped just inches from her. He placed his hand on her cheek and felt her tense under his touch. He gave her a smile. You know, there are other ways I can pay for the flowers, he whispered into her ear in a sly tone, full of other intentions. Pervert! Ino shrieked and pushed him away from her. Her cheeks were shaded pink, which was obvious that the Yamanaka had allowed her thoughts to wander on the implications of his words. You are blushing, Naruto stated, smiling. No, I'm not. You are seeing things. Ino denied the claim, putting both her hands on her cheeks. She could not believe that the weirdo had actually put her in this position. He had made her blush. This was something that even in her worst nightmare never happened, not even if Sasuke was dead. Naruto shook his head, never losing his smile. You have a wild imagination, Ino. You were already thinking about reaching the seventh heaven with me. And no, I wasn't. She denied his claim, this time stuttering. She finally regained her coolness and held out her right hand. Naruto handed her the pay. If you tell anyone about this, I will deny it and kill you. Naruto smiled. I won't tell a soul that you are a naughty girl. Perhaps I might tell Sasuke since he obviously has no soul. But then again, he might not care since he is somewhat a homo, the blonde stated, quietly, but Ino heard him clearly. Ino glared at him. Don't talk about Sasuke like that. You know nothing about him. She spun around and left him without another word. It was obvious that she did not like the comment about her Sasuke-kun. Neither of the fangirls appreciated it when someone spoke things about Sasuke that they did not like. What a dramatic turn of events, he almost laughed. If someone told me that brooding Sharinganless Uchiha had placed a loyalty seal on these foolish girls, I would certainly not find it hard to believe, he mumbled as he went back to his seat to continue with his meal. As soon as the inevitable banging of the door occurred, Naruto's smile disappeared and was replaced by a look of indifference. Now how am I going to kill time before I see the Sandaime? Flashback. Naruto sighed as he looked his hands. His body has gone through pain that had never thought he would ever experience in his life. He was sure that if he was not a jinchuriki, he would have been died by now due to the pain being inflicted to his body. It was like he'd been put through a torture session by Orochimaru and Ibiki. However, even with all this pain, even with all the bisection, his skin never looked like it had gone through any of that. He would have to thank the Kyuubi on that. Despite everything that happened to his body, how many wounds and gashes he received, the bijou kept healing him. His muscles kept regenerating. It was like he was an immortal. However, he acknowledged that if things continued like this would shorten his lifespan considerably. The sick sadist doing all this didn't seem to care about that even if he acknowledged the fact. He was, however, grateful that his Uzumaki DNA had brought him a strong life force. At least everything has now stopped. He was free from pain. However, this time, unlike the previous times, he was left with a scar across his back. The Kyuubi had been unable to regenerate everything back to places. He would have to hide it via genjutsu. He was no good in it now, but he would have to learn. You won't return to Konoha for 3 months. Send that blood clone I helped you create back to the village. You need to condition your body to adapt to the modifications, Madara stated as he appeared before Naruto. Hi, Madara-sama, Naruto responded in a calm, emotionless tone. He was no longer smiling. Each time he smiled, this man would tell him to wipe the smile off his face because there was nothing to smile about. Follow me, Madara said as he turned his heels and away from the blonde. Hi, Naruto winced as he got out of bed. His body was still hurting, but he'd gotten used to pain. It did not hurt as much now. He got out and followed Madara into the dark passages of the hideout. Madara finally entered another room, before settling down on his large seat. Due to his age, frailness of his body, he couldn't afford to stand for too long. Settle down, this will take some time. Naruto did as instructed and sat down on the ground. He looked back at Madara and spoke. What is it that you wish to speak with me, Madara-sama? Project Tsuki no Mi, Madara stated calmly. Black Zetsu has already told you everything about it. What he didn't inform you was that the plan has already started, and you will be working with other people. Naruto nodded and took out his little black book. Madara didn't react to this. The last time he peeked on it, its pages were just empty, and the blonde only said there were just records. But he never explained to him anything about it. I picked up on that. Zetsu stated that there was someone you trained and was currently going by your name. There is also someone else who has your eyes. I don't know who, but I do know that they are not in possession of your other student. Naruto explained, looking into his book. This has led me to believe that the other student and the one with your eyes have already started working on Tsuki no Mi. It always irked Madara that Naruto was a bit smarter for someone so young, in the fact that when they spoke these days, the blonde didn't always look into his eyes, he always stared into his book. He could even flip a page while he was talking, but he never missed anything he said. It was fine anyhow, he still had a few years to manipulate the boy. My other student, as you say, is Uchiha Obito. I found him dying during the Third Shinobi World War. I rescued him there and brought him here. He wished to return to his home to continue his life, but along the way he saw that this reality was cruel and would never change, and so he returned to me. Naruto was quiet for a few moments. He flipped a page before responding. I find it curious that Uchiha Madara would allow someone to leave like that after he had saved his life. Could it be perhaps that you saved his life because you wanted to use him? If so, then why would you just allow him to go? At that time you were already too old to continue with the plan. Naruto paused for a moment. He looked at Madara for a few seconds before looking back at his book. That is, unless you had something planned. Since no doubt you had failed to convince him about the flawed shinobi world, which would explain why he chose to return home, another way to convince him otherwise was probably used. The fact that the boy already knew him in and out brought so many questions to him. Naruto was very different from Obito. However, he decided not to comment on what the blonde was speculating. My other student is Uzumaki Nagato. He is older than Obito and he is the one who has my eyes. There are still Uzumaki around this world. I thought every one of them would be dead, Naruto stated. He didn't even sound a bit happy about the fact that there were survivors from his mother's clan. When Uzushigokyo was destroyed, a few survivors scattered around the world. However, most of them are dead. Nagato's parents are also dead. They were killed during the Second Shinobi World War when he was still younger, Madara explained calmly. I see, Naruto paused before closing his book. Uzumaki are related to Senju. This makes Nagato a good candidate to wield the Rinnegan without any drawbacks. What is the deal between Obito and Nagato then? Obito knows everything, Madara responded. About the plan, Naruto finished. This means not everything else. But Nagato was left in the dark. Yes, that is what is important, Madara stated. How do I fit in this picture then? Obito is an Uchiha and Nagato has the Rinnegan. They should be able to fulfill this plan without any troubles. If Obito is trained by you, then he should know how to manipulate people. Naruto paused for a moment, realizing something. Nagato was not trained by Madara. This means the manipulator between the pair would be Obito. Obito, he said, leaving for Madara to figure out the rest. He is too emotional and I believe he will betray me. I cannot deny that he is smart, but his mental stability makes him dangerous to leave unchecked. There are no problems with Nagato, he can be easily manipulated. Obito has already done that, Madara stated. You've not told me of my role in all this, Naruto said, looking straight at Madara. When looking at the blonde's eyes, Madara could only see curiosity, nothing more. If it was faked, he could have easily deduced it. He was a master manipulator after all. Watch Obito, and keep close ties with Nagato. You are fit for this role, you are not emotional like Obito, and have nothing to lose in this world. You have no one, no family, nothing to live for. But Tsuki no Mi gives you a purpose. Madara watched Naruto's body language carefully, but it revealed nothing. Nagato can revive me using the Rinnegan. However, should there be problems, you will have to revive me yourself. Take care of both Nagato and Obito. My eyes must be reserved for my return though. With all the body modifications, Nagato and Obito shouldn't be a problem to you. Naruto absorbed everything silently before speaking. Within the eternal genjutsu I can have both my parents. I can smile in the comfort of my parents. Perhaps I may even get a younger sister. He smiled slightly at the thought. He was really thinking of it. It would be really beautiful. With how famous his father was, he could be the prince of Konoha. Madara allowed the blonde to smile. That smile was by no means a fake. Yes. He then paused for a moment. Even when wielding my eyes, you should be able to access my Sharingan, and all its abilities, unlike Obito and Nagato who can only access the Rinnegan. I can use both the Rinnegan and Sharingan. This means that I can access your perfect Susanoo. Interesting. So I'll wield the legendary powers of Uchiha Madara, Naruto stated. So that is what the experiments were for, or perhaps I can a Rinnegan of my own given the modifications. Before Madara could respond, a swirling vortex appeared within the room. He then spoke. Ah, Naruto, this is Obito. Obito, take off your mask so Naruto can see your face. Naruto took out his book again. Interesting, both Madara and Obito couldn't tell what he found interesting, but neither asked. Flashback end, Hokage's office. Hiruzen stared at Naruto with mild curiosity. Each time the blonde came to see him, he felt like he was seeing a complete stranger, like each time he came, he was a new person. Impossible? Yes, it was, but he couldn't shake off the feeling. Naruto was many things, some of the things he failed to even define. With lack of definition, he couldn't even hope to begin to understand anything. The feeling he got, what his experience revealed when looking at Naruto, it was that the blonde was a mountain of mystery. Despite being young, the blonde could be so mysterious, such that even times he was left solving a puzzle that toyed with his old, but sharp mind. Over the past days he had discovered little, but much in terms of weight. What he has discovered led him to believe that Naruto knew some of the things that he wasn't supposed to know. However, he still couldn't prove it. Just to be sure, he would continue to keep a close eye on the blonde. It would do him no good if Naruto continued to be mysterious. There was once a time that Naruto had managed to sneak in behind him. That day, he had not sensed anything, not a damn thing. The blonde had walked in behind him, the Sandaime Hokage, god of shinobi, the professor. He had nearly welcomed a heart attack that day, but he had dismissed it as a fluke. However, now he was starting to think that it may not have been a fluke. Judging by the way you are looking at me, I'd be inclined to think that you are trying to read my mind, Naruto stated, sounding a bit amused by the stare of the Sandaime. The old man had been staring at him for more than a minute, looking to be deep in thought. The Sandaime chuckled. Sorry my boy, I was lost in thought, Hiruzen stated with a small smile. I may have been trying to get into your head, he admitted, never losing his smile. Sometimes Naruto came here and acted like a child he was, sometimes they had some good conversations. Today it seemed like one of those days Naruto wasn't going to be laughing hard with him, or demanding something. It was going to be those days they had a good chat. It always felt like he was speaking to someone older. Naruto hid the fact that he wasn't stupid to him. Indifferent to many things? Yes, he was, and that also not hidden from anyone. This troubled him greatly though. He had failed to get the blonde interested in anything and now he had graduated. He would at least make the team selection interesting. You would have only found ramen noodles if you dived into my head, Naruto responded calmly, eliciting a chuckle from the Hokage. You may be right about that, Hiruzen smiled. Please take a seat, Hiruzen stated. Naruto had been standing in front of his desk since he walked into his office. Naruto did as told. It would be cool if one could read the mind of another person just by looking at them, huh? The blonde sounded a bit thoughtful. Certainly, the ability would really be useful to have. Hiruzen couldn't deny that, but still, ability like that would be dangerous in the wrong hands. Naruto sighed. Do you always have to be extra cautious in everything? It wasn't the first time he had heard the Sandaime say something like that. Words such as those took out the fun in everything. Hiruzen only smiled, but didn't respond to the question. How do you feel now that you have graduated? If I remember, it was quite a hustle to get you accepted to the academy. Moreover, I had to force you into going. Good and relieved, if I had to spend another year in that prison, I would have committed suicide. The academy isn't that bad, Naruto. If you'd gone there with the right attitude you would have enjoyed your time there and made some friends. The Sandaime was not pleased with the fact that Naruto had no friends. Yes, he regularly talks with Chuji and Shikamaru, but according to Jiraiya and Kakashi, they weren't exactly friends. Naruto shrugged in response. The third Hokage sighed. How about we talk on our way to the ramen stand? I haven't treated you to some ramen in some time and I fear that we may no longer get the chance as time moves forward. Naruto nodded with a smile. Okay, but you have to allow me to eat as many bowls as I want. You always eat as many as you want even if I tell you not to, Hiruzen reminded the blonde with a chuckle. I just can't help myself. Ramen tastes a lot better when someone is treating you, especially when you're the one buying. Naruto said a bit happily. Well, soon you're going to be earning your own money as a shinobi, you'll have to treat me too as I can experience this taste you speak of, the Sandaime stated, ever so smiling warmly as he stood up from his seat. Deal. So, Naruto, what do you hope to achieve as a shinobi? The Sandaime asked as the two left the entrance of the Hokage Tower. They had left his office in some peaceful silence before he had decided to break the silence. Naruto looked a bit thoughtful before responding, I don't really know. However, I do hope that when I see the heart of the shinobi world I'll find something. Sarutobi nodded and responded. Some make their choices when they are still at the academy. I think you've grown up to think of your own dream. What do you hope to see outside there? I don't hope to see anything, but I wish to know what it is really like to be out there. The teachers at the academy never said it was fun being a shinobi, but they never told us otherwise when we say it is. This has led me to believe there are many things outside the walls, good and bad, Naruto responded calmly, ignoring the blatant glares that were sent his way. It didn't matter if he was with the Sandaime, these fools still glared at him. Although he ignored it and never gave it a thought, he could sense that it didn't please the old man beside him. There were even times when the old would even send a killer intent to scare off the glaring villagers. There are indeed many things outside the walls. People interpret it definitely, but it is not always as people expect it to be, especially for a shinobi. Naruto looked at the Sandaime. How do you interpret it, old man? The third Hokage merely smiled, placed his right hand on Naruto's head, ruffling his hair a bit, he responded. I'll tell you when you define what you wish to achieve as a shinobi, how about that? The following day, academy, the road to ninja was finally starting to look good. They'd finally graduate from this god-forsaken place. No offense to Irika, but a time came when they really didn't enjoy sitting for the classes the man taught. However, there was little that could be done because they were just kids, and had little say in anything. Naturally, it was the adults who did all the talking for them. Sometimes even for things that they really didn't like. Parents did think they know what best after all. Despite their barely contained excitement, they didn't fully understand the nature of the shinobi wood. Who could fault them? They were just brats after all. Being a shinobi was not as cool as they really made it out to be, but the brats didn't know that. Irika never bothered to teach them what was truly outside those walls. The Chunin himself had faced the cold slap and had been grinded by the sharp fangs of the world these kinds so dream of joining. He'd been embarrassed as a shinobi while he was outside the wall of Konoha. He had his fair experience to know that these children were going to realize soon enough that the shinobi world was not as wonderful as thought. Sometimes you could face things that made your tomorrow look bleak, things that made you think twice about returning to the field. Irika had done it once, and he wasn't going to do it again. Being a shinobi wasn't for him, he understood that quite well. Teaching some skills and knowledge to the little brats was what he could do best. Irika sighed, watching the students from a secret place so that they couldn't see him. Today he had decided to observe his class for a little while longer before he finally decided to take his time. It was not yet time for class to begin, but they had already filled, of course. Naturally, Naruto wasn't in the class. The very thought of the blonde turned his thoughts black and painted a huge frown on his face. When it came to Naruto, Irika didn't know what to expect. He just hoped that things turned out for the best. Everyone else settled inside the class and the appearance of Naruto was what they waited for. It didn't take long for the blonde to enter the class. Today he was wearing something different. He wore dark black shinobi pants and shoes to match his pants in color. His entire upper body was covered by a long-sleeved black shirt that matched just fine the other pieces below his waist. His hands were covered with white bandages that went south in color. All the other pieces of his attire were black, the bandages stood out in white. The only thing that remained the same was the mask of indifference. Sasuke felt his stomach twist and turn when he saw the blonde enter the class. His hands were both inside his pockets, and he looked like he would rather be somewhere else than this place. That mask of indifference, and attitude, the way he walked, he could read nothing from it. Sometimes the movements of Naruto painted "I don't care" inside his mind. His cold stare did nothing but to blow the blonde a cool breeze and it plunged out his nerves, making him feel uneasy. A stare contest with the blonde was out of the question. Despite being the brooding and cold-hearted king, he couldn't stare at those eyes for too long without feeling like he was being stared at a superior being. These all made him hate the blonde more. What really stirred his frustrations and fury was the fact that whether he hated the blonde or not, Naruto would not care. The thought raged through his mind and colored murderous pictures of the blonde. Whether someone called it sick or not, he didn't care. As long as it was able to quench his ever-growing desire to murder the blonde, he couldn't complain. Sakura felt Sasuke's eyes staring at Naruto, and she looked at him. Look at him, acting all cool and careless, her inner thoughts raged, glaring holes on his forehead. It wasn't fair that he had to gain Sasuke's attention. It was enough that she had to compete with the pig on her right-hand side, but competing with that loser, arrogant bastard that cares for nothing because he has nothing was not something she was not willing to allow. Sasuke belonged to her, and her only. What was so interesting about him anyway? Her eyes wandered from head to toe, and she still could not find anything that was special about him. Sure, he had a great hairstyle and wore nice clothes and was kind of cool with his attitude, but it shouldn't be enough to attract Sasuke's attention. It was a bit ironic that Sakura didn't realize that she'd complimented Naruto, and then say there was nothing good about his looks. Sakura watched the blonde like a predator watching its prey. How could he be so like that? If he mistimed his footsteps and fell down on the floor with his annoying face, she wouldn't mind adding to the insult by stepping over him. He was a low-life orphan who had nothing after all. It wouldn't be wrong to use him in the same way she does with the welcome mat at her entrance door at home. Naruto resisted with all his might the urge to roll his eyes, feeling the stare of the flat, pink-haired girl sitting between Sasuke and Ino on the front row. He could only imagine that kind of filthy thoughts her weak mind might be formulating. A girl such as Sakura was predictable. He could predict what she could be doing the whole day without missing a thing. The only thing that made him look twice at the row the pink-loving girl was sitting at was the blonde Yamanaka girl. At least Ino wasn't that bad. "Hello, Ino," Naruto greeted the mask of indifference all but a memory. He sat on the desk just beside Ino, facing her, his back facing Irika's stage. "How do you do today?" Ino narrowed her eyes, trying to contemplate what Naruto was trying to achieve. Her mind just went black when searching for answers. Seeing that he wasn't going away, the Yamanaka responded, "I'm well, Naruto, you?" She spoke in a sweet tone and smiled that was by no means forced. It was probably the first time he'd been asked his health by a fellow academy student. Shikamaru had no time for such little things. Smiling, Naruto responded, "I'm well. You look lovely as always. You sure do take care of your body." Some watched as the scene unfolded with mild interest. It was a rare scene to see Naruto conversing with someone other than those in his circle. Moreover, he was also smiling. Usually, he spoke with the mask of indifference planted across his face, his tone also more than willing to match his expression. While Sasuke settled for watching at the corner of his right eye, Sakura gaped openly at what was unfolding beside her. She certainly couldn't begin to fathom it. The loser had just complimented her pig friend and he was chatting to her like they were some sort of free. She dare not say it. It was unspeakable. "Well, I've to take care of my body if Sasuke-kun is going to take notice of me," the blonde Yamanaka finished in thought. She wasn't going to say it aloud to the blonde lest he make some shitty comment. Naruto leaned a bit closer to her, and gave her a sly smile, eyes pulsating with playfulness, and spoke the words that she so often wished Sasuke would say to her. "Perhaps I should come by at your house sometime and allow you to take care of my body too." Cha! Sakura could no longer it any longer. She turned to her left and looked her Sasuke-kun. "Sasuke-kun, please tell me I'm dreaming." As those words escaped her lips, Sakura entertained the thought of allowing Sasuke to kiss her so she could wake up from this horrible nightmare. Sasuke said nothing, suddenly feeling the loss of interest. His gaze darted outside the classroom through the window. "Ino, Naruto left the affectionate Chan on purpose. Is she really okay upstairs? I mean, that isn't normal. You should take her to your father so he can take a look inside her head. You never know, there might a worm feasting on her brain, affecting its functional capabilities," the blonde said, sounding concerned, much to Ino's amusement. Ino laughed, looking straight at Sakura. Naruto had said it knowing that Sakura could hear him, and the look on her face was just priceless. She was sure that even Sasuke's lips twitched for a second. "Good one, Naruto," Ino said after her recovery from her laughter. "What in the world of Kami-sama is happening?" It was the thought that ran amongst those watching the scene in the front row. "Sasuke-kun, are you going to allow him to say something like that about me?" Sakura asked, looking straight at her Uchiha. He was her dream, so she thought would be more than willing to retaliate in her place. However, his reaction, lack of rather, left her speechless. Naruto shook his head slightly, his mask of indifference slipping back to its rightful place. He looked at the pink-haired girl who was close to hitting him. "Are you slow? Did your mother hit you by a hammer while you were still little?" That was the last straw. While Ino could not help but be amused, Sakura nearly punched Naruto on his annoying face. The blonde wasn't in the mood to be hit, and so he had jumped away from the desk to avoid being hit by the girl. His eyes just stared at the seething girl impassively. "Che," Sakura hissed with a glare that bounced off Naruto. "At least I have a mother," she finished the punchline and folded her hands across her flat chest. "To compliment matters," she huffed. Ino winced at those words while Sasuke watched with interest. Some found it funny while others were just indifferent towards it. Who cared if he had no mother? Naturally, Naruto's mask of indifference never slipped off his face. His words were a contradiction to his tone and expression. "Ouch," he said. "I'm wounded." He looked at Ino, and smiled at her once more. "I'm going to sit back and allow Kiba to lick my wounds." When those words finally sunk in, Ino burst out in laughter, as she understood what Naruto meant. The blonde said he was wounded. Kiba is often put in the same boat as a dog. A wounded dog licks its wounds, but Naruto was going to sit back and allow Kiba, the dog, to lick his wounds for him. Naruto went his merry way, leaving an amused Ino and a confused Sakura. What did he mean by that? Sakura questioned her rival. She would be downright pissed off if Naruto was making fun of her. She would beat the crap of the loser if it was the case. Ino looked at her friend and rival. She was tempted to ask the same question Naruto asked. "Are you slow?" However, Sakura wasn't slow, she knew that. But sometimes, well, Her mind just seemed to fail her. It was nothing, Ino finally responded. You'd better not be laughing at me, Ino pig. Sakura's confused look turned into a smirk. Have you forgotten that I'm sitting next to Sasuke-kun today? I might even be put in the same team as him. Naturally, Ino retorted and threw fit verbal insults. Hinata smiled watching Naruto slowly make his way to his seat. The blonde was truly strong. She thought that he would have flipped when Sakura made the mother comment. However, there was nothing in him to suggest otherwise. Only a strong person would brush a comment such as the one the pink-haired girl made without as much as twitching. If positions had been swapped, she would have run home crying. She wasn't strong enough to take such words. She too had lost her mother at a young age, but she still had her father. However, an insensitive comment like the one Sakura made would have tore through her defenses like a nuclear bomb. Inside his office, the Sandaime felt a pang of guilt coursing through his heart. Although Naruto showed no outward reaction to Sakura's words, he knew for certain that the blonde felt something inside his heart. The guilt inside him made his paperwork look like a mountain to climb. If only he could tell Naruto of his parents, if only that stupid girl knew who his parents were, she wouldn't have said such words. Sometimes Hiruzen wondered how Naruto dealt with it all. If the glaring hatred from the ungrateful villagers was not enough, he had to face such blasphemy in the hands of his fellow academy students. He really couldn't begin to fathom what was inside of Naruto's heart. He hoped that this kind of behavior did not turn Naruto's heart into a deep well of darkness. The future was also bleak. Nothing much with the villagers was changing much. To make matters worse, Naruto wasn't even bothering to get them to think better of him. If anything, he didn't appear to care, and that scared him. He could only hope that Jiraiya would make his move before things became impossible to repair. The dam was already leaking large amounts of water on both sides, and if his loyal student didn't mend things quickly, everything would fall apart and a lot of people would be affected by it all. Naruto took his seat quietly before placing his left hand on the desk, palm on his left cheek. His book was ready to be released. You really do know how to put on a show, Shikamaru said, turning around to face the blonde. He did not expect the iconic mask Naruto always carried to go away and was not disappointed when it didn't leave his face. This is my last day coming here. I thought I should do something a bit differently, and I just couldn't help myself, Naruto responded, tilting his head a little to allow its weight to fall on his hand. I didn't know that you were familiar with Ino. Your recent attitude towards her and every other girl in this class was as the same mask of indifference you always carry. He was definitely not asking a question. He merely stated a simple fact that he knew Naruto wasn't going to deny. Things change, Naruto responded with a slight nonchalant shrug of his right shoulder, and she is a little interesting thing, wouldn't you agree? While that flat girl is smart, her mind often takes naps in the wrong time. However, Ino may not be book smart, but her curious personality and perceptiveness makes her an interesting person. Naruto's eyes were still fixed on Shikamaru, and the Nara digested everything and watched it over with a nod. While I have no doubt you are aware of your surroundings more than you let on, I didn't think you would have taken an interest in her because of her flaw. Shikamaru chose to use the emphasized word because that is how Naruto saw the fangirl attitude. I can overlook it if she can act normal for some until Sasuke is brought up, Naruto responded, still not backing out of the staring contest with Shikamaru. When did you become friends with her anyway? You had yet to speak with her since you joined our class. I don't want to believe that you've known her all this time and have just been keeping your relationship a secret. While Shikamaru had no doubt Naruto was able to keep secrets, he was sure Ino was not the one who could keep a friendship and Naruto a secret. Seeing that Shikamaru looked away from him, declaring him winner of the little contest, Naruto took out his book and held it on his right hand while his head was still resting on his left hand. I recently took interest in her. He gave a simple response while his eyes were fixed on his book. Shikamaru nodded in acceptance and rested his head on the desk before speaking. Who do you think you are going to be placed on a team with? I already have a wild guess as to whom one of my teammates will be. You have the same guess, Naruto responded in a tone that clearly drew the whole picture of how he felt about the person who was to be his teammate. Shikamaru didn't need to guess how Naruto felt about it. Kiba chose to walk in as the two were in a pause. He sat beside between Chuji and Shikamaru, his back facing the front of the class, face turned to Naruto who was sitting at the back row. Yo! Naruto never bothered to spare the Inuzuka a glance. He flipped a page before responding. Hello, Kiba. It was a simple response that escaped his lips. Kiba almost frowned at that I don't care attitude, but he was used to it. However, it still didn't stop him from taking a swipe at the blonde. Man, I don't want to be in a team with you. I would rather spend another year here, in the academy, than being tied on a team with a loser like you. You could probably get me killed while taking a nap. Naruto could identify some disdain and a bit of frustrations in the voice of Kiba. The Inuzuka has never been able to bottle up his emotions, and this made it easy for him to read the boy. Never showing Kiba his left eye, as it was still fixed on his black book, Naruto responded in the same I don't care tone he always used. The feeling is mutual, Kiba. There was no snort, No anger or anything. The words just seemed to flow out of his mouth as though it was the most natural thing to say. The lack of anything tangible to read left Kiba's mind raging, but he did nothing rash. I pray to Kami for the poor souls who are going to be held back by a loser like you. The disdain when he mentioned loser never left his voice. Shikamaru sighed, inwardly. Well, at least Naruto doesn't appear to be in the mood to make fun of Kiba, he thought idly. However, if the dog-loving boy continued to throw nonsense like that to Naruto, he was going to get it soon. Well, at least this familiar picture wasn't going to be played in his mind on a daily occurrence after today. I also pray for the souls who will be teamed with you, Kiba. Naruto still refrained from name-calling the boy. He was no longer going to see the smut face of the Inuzuka. He was no longer going to keep the normal ritual in play. Now this kind of response was getting on Kiba's head. It was enough that the blonde had deemed his presence not worth looking up at, but this was just pushing it. What is that book you are always reading? I've never been able to take a good look at it, Kiba said, changing the subject. This has picked up Shikamaru's curiosity. The Nara heir had never seen what was inside the black book, not even once. The only time he was able to take a peek, he found the pages to be empty. However, he knew better. He was certain that he just couldn't see what was written in the book. Still, he never bothered to ask because he knew Naruto was never going to tell him. Naruto's left eye darted around the class. He could no longer feel the presence of Iruka in the class. He returned to his book before he responded. Mind your own breath, Kiba. My book is for my eyes only, and I mean that, seriously. Kiba scoffed and tried to swat the book away from Naruto's hand, but he was never able to touch it. The book disappeared from his hand, and the blonde gripped him by the wrist, tightly and twisted it enough for him to wince in pain. What kept him from throwing his free hand was the eye that stared deep into his soul. Staring at Naruto's eye felt like staring deep into a void of emptiness. Don't do that again, unless you wish Akamaru to carry you to the cold room that reeks of medicine, Naruto warned sharply, in a barely audible tone before letting go of Kiba's hand. The boy massaged his wrist and glared at Naruto. Who knew you could get so emotional over a stupid book? Kiba spoke in a low growl, not the least appreciating the wince caused by Naruto. Naruto didn't respond. Instead, his right hand was placed on the desk, and his face turned towards the window in his left side. The message was loud to Kiba, you are dismissed. This turn of events didn't stray from what Shikamaru had predicted when Kiba tried to take away Naruto's book. If Naruto has held that book all this time and has never allowed anyone to touch, what made Kiba think he would be allowed to touch it? He also had little to doubt that if Kiba tried that again, he would end up in a hospital. Embarrassed and lacking sharp teeth to bite, Kiba walked away towards his seat, eliciting a shake of head from Chuji, who had been watching everything from the sidelines. One of these days, those two are going to have it all out, he said, eyeing Shikamaru. The Nara could only nod. At least we won't be there to watch. He certainly found no interest in watching Naruto and Kiba do battle, especially when he knew the outcome of the little battle should it occur. Chuji shook his head slightly. Don't you think we will hang out every now and then once we start doing missions?